This is Papa Smurf. You're listening to Our Lifestyle, the podcast, with ODB and the Mayor.
Yo, it's ODB, Our Lifestyle podcast, and we want to remind you that Bayou Showdown is going down later this year in Slidell, Louisiana, at the Harbor Center. That's 100 Harbor Center Boulevard, again in Slidell, Louisiana. Bayou Showdown is November 20th and 21st. It's the weekend before Thanksgiving, so get on out and support the scene, including Custom Car Show Productions in conjunction with Mr. Sean Randall. Bayou Showdown, November 20th and 21st, Slidell, Louisiana. Check that hashtag, Bayou Showdown, or Facebook, Bayou Showdown, for more information. Yo, it's Our Lifestyle podcast, a.k.a. OLP. And I've been trying to get a hold of Mike all week, dude. The guy has been ghosting me. Let me see. We're on this conference here. Mike, did you get the notification? Did you dial in?
Jay, you told me we didn't have time for this crap, man. Let's go. Let's do this, man.
I know. So listen, all kidding aside, many of you were listening to this on day one, the 30th of July. We're getting ready to roll into August, but this weekend, of course, relaxing in the Northwest, the Awakening. I'm not going to be able to make it. Few things have came up. That's going down, but also Texas Heat Wave, Mike, is going down. I know Slamboree's next weekend as well as Down for Dennis. But, dude, check this out, Mike. In about a week, over the next couple of weeks, is technically our 6th anniversary, dude. So we're going to do something a little bit different on this one, Mike. We're going to actually say that we're going to keep it short. And, Mike, we got to hold ourselves to it because we've got Rob Rodell on this one, and you know it's some good audio, right?
Dude, from the stories you've been telling me, I can't wait to listen to this one.
Oh, it's going to be epic, dude. And here's the tie-in. Rob's Isuzu Amigo, Mike, was on the cover of Mini Truckin 23 years ago in July, so we wanted to scoot this one in July for that tie-in. And I think it's going to be good. And I want to remind everyone, it looks like we're going to have Daryl and Nikki on next week. Down for Dennis is next Saturday. It's August 7th. And Mike, last I heard, you are going up, right?
Yes, sir. Me and my boy John Lopez are flying up. We're going to meet our boy Josh Ellis. We're going to have some dinner and some drinks, and then we're going to cruise on out to the show.
Yeah, Down, number 4, Dennis on Instagram. Of course, the same on Facebook. Go look them up. Now, we've had some jam-packed episodes, and we've had, obviously, rest in peace to our homie, our brother, Greg Miller. We had some of these episodes where we just had to get them out, so we haven't had a chance to get Daryl on, but that's going to be coming up. We'll do some audio next week. Please go out there. Buy some merchandise, shoot some photos, hashtag them Down for Dennis with the number 4, and that's going to be going down. But, Mike, dude, listen, man. We're literally on the cusp, like this month that we're rolling into. We've got to celebrate the 6th, man. I've got a few ideas, and we're going to have like a staff meeting, get the employee binders out, kind of see where we stand and see what, I've been telling a couple of the homies, man, I really think we've done what we should have done, and maybe it's just time to, like you've been telling me, yo, Jay, just throw the towel in. I'm thinking with number 6, that's what we were destined for, 6 years. I mean, what do you think, man?
I thought it was 7.
I'm going to have to check those original notes, man, because we had that goal. I thought it was like, 6 years, and then, we're out the game. Like, I know Barry, his 50th was the other day, Barry Sanders. I know he went out like with 9, but weren't you and I talking we're going to try to do like a Terrell Davis deal, like go out as an MVP and then just, out the game?
Yeah, see, I want you to double check those notes because I'm more than pretty sure that it was 7.
See,
so
and when you say more than pretty sure, to me, that is like etched in stone, dog. You know what I mean? Like some Egyptian shit.
And now I think you're talking out your ass because I think you got another good 10 years into this.
I don't know, man. I think we're ready to literally kind of go out like a Barry Sanders. But he did like a 9-season, kind of like a Seinfeld. I say we go, dude. We go 6. We'll have to get the Airhead Nation to find out, like, because I think a lot of them are ready for us to throw the towel in. And the cool thing is, I'm very thankful, Mike. We'll have to talk more about this. We've been talking about we want to have Mini Trucker Cole. We want to have all of these other fine folks that are out there doing the damn thing. And to me, it's awesome because there's so much content. A lot of these guys and ladies have given us, the nod, and we appreciate that. But, Mike, it's a scene thing, right? A lot of times they go, it's a team thing. Well, it's a scene thing here, and it's awesome to see all of these different, individuals coming forward with the future Mini Truckers and the lowest common denominator. And then, you think about Billy Bob podcast. And then, our homie Glenn, man, he just came out the woodworks, dog.
The custom scene, brother. And I tell you what, man, it is an absolute freaking, from the beginning to the end, just got me laughing all damn day
roller coaster. Today. Oh, yeah.
Listening to, and our boy Dizzy on there. I mean, it was an absolute riot. And I tell you what, Glenn is definitely got his hands full with that wife of his. Yeah.
That's a kinfolk right there. And what is it on, if you go on like Apple Podcasts, I think, like all the major players, it's isn't it The Custom Scene?
Yep, The Custom Scene.
Yeah, go check it out. But listen, we tell everybody we love all of these different pages, the future Mini Truckers, the lowest common. Been talking about having them, kind of, link it up with those guys, which I want to do. But in as we kind of turn the page, like what I really want to reinforce is we are going to do this quick intro here, which is kind of uncanny of us. You all know we love to talk. It's not easy because, obviously last couple of weeks, Mike and I haven't been able to link up. We've had a lot going on. Rest in peace, Courtney Hallowell. Thanks for everyone that listened to that one. Rest in peace to our homie, as we said, Greg Miller. What's important for us is this interview. There's a lot of content. Thank you to Rob Rodell, Negative Camber, Texas. He'll tell his story. And, Mike, what's cool is I mentioned LOMEGO. It's a truck that I always kind of loved, right? And it was ironic because, John had acquired this truck, and it kind of it won our Old School Mini Truck of the Year. Kind of really good refurbished, kind of cleaned up and brought back to running and driving status, right? The paint was always sick. But the cool thing is, Mike, I got a lot of answers to things I always wondered about, like when did he buy it? How did he acquire it? How long did he have it? Dude, Rob goes into all of that, and man, it's a pretty fun journey, dude.
Absolutely, brother. And once again, I'm sure you absolutely killed it, like you always do. And if you haven't listened to the last 2 episodes, Jay has, he's went above and beyond. So definitely make sure you guys tune in to the last 2. Tune into all of them, but the last 2 have been really good.
Hey, appreciate the good word. As we kind of get ready to roll in, I want to thank everyone for subscribing to All Time Low magazine. We say it oftentimes, these issues do sell out. If you go to atlmagazine.com, that's short for All Time Low, you'll see that they have individual issues, but only the last issue is typically available. A little bit higher price point for a really nice magazine. You can subscribe, and those are automatic, and that gets you 6 of those. You do end up saving a little bit of money. And lastly, Mike, I did talk to the homie Josh Ellis the other day. He said, yo, you got to hit up Briggity Ron. I've kind of been disconnected a little bit, trying to balance a lot of stuff. And the homie he was kind of stuck in a particular town, getting some maintenance done on his truck, some things. So if you see Ron and Hank at a show, go buy some merch. It really helps out. I mean, these guys are on this U.S. tour, 30-plus events. But, Mike, we got to be able to get them back to the West Coast. Go to HAMMERD, weekendwear.com, and order some merch. I mean, Mike, you know that DJ Mays shirt, bro, with teal short, that thing's straight fire, dude. If they haven't ordered that, we got some problems, you know what I mean?
Dude, you are missing out for sure. And talking about DJ Mays, you guys be on the lookout. Support our DJ of the scene, DJ Mays. He's got hats, he's got shirts coming out. So make sure you guys go out and support DJ Mays. And Jay, with that being said, we also got Mr. Get Decked, Joey. He's got a show coming up, Attitude Check 9. So make sure you guys check that out as well. And if you need decks, skate decks, and you want anything on it, I'm kind of curious to see what the Spark Show has got up their sleeve, because they got a skate deck. And it's got some cool pinstriping on one side, but they didn't show me what's on the other side of it. So I'm curious to see what's on the other side of it.
I know, right? Well, like you said, I mean, there's a lot of shows to squeeze in, but I mean, Down for Dennis in a week, the Spark Show the following week, and then Attitude Check is that week after, which is technically the 20th through like the 22nd, and that's in Virginia. All of these are on the OLP calendar. Just go to ourlifestylepodcast.com. On the left-hand side, look for the digital OLP show calendar. Tap there, and then you can subscribe. Pretty easy. That's in Woodford, Virginia, for those scoring at home. Attitude Check 9. There's so much more to talk about, Mike, but what we're going to do is we are going to swerve it into next week, as we always get sideways into the weekend. But we do keep it. What's the L word, Mike, that we always have to keep it?
We always keep it on the down low.
Oh, you messed it up. You know, we got to keep it legal, not illegal. Remember?
I remember. I was trying up and throw you a curveball there, but it's always legal.
Yeah, it's always legal. So seriously, if you guys enjoyed this episode, leave a 5-star rating, subscribe and or follow, depending on the podcast app that you're using. And Mike, dude, this could be a record for our segment to lead in to a very long interview with the homie Rob, but I tell you what, man, it was damn fun. I hope they enjoy it, and that's why we have shrunk down our segment to just over 10 minutes, homie.
Hey, that's what we're talking about, brother. Well, hey, Airhead Nation, with that being said, let's go ahead and let's get to Rob. That's what y'all really are tuning in for.
Yep, and get ready for Bayou Showdown this November. Bayou Showdown on Facebook for more. Big ups to the homies, and rest in peace to all the fallen. We have more to talk about with some of our fallen folks in the scene next week. With that being said, Mike, we out you.
Peace.
Yo, so excited on this episode to talk to our friend Rob Rodell, NC, Texas. How you doing, my brother?
I'm doing well.
Dude, man, I'm glad to hear it. We've had you on the list, man, and I've been so excited. July 98, we'll talk about it, represented, your truck on the cover of Mini Truckin, which kind of ties in. We're going to squeeze this one in right at the end of July here. But, man, I wanted to kind of start off, for those that may not know, or you're going to give them a trip down memory lane, I'm sure, but can you share like a little bit about yourself? Like, who's Rob Rodell?
Oh, Rob Rodell. He's just a mini trucker from Texas that kind of ended up building a couple of pretty cool trucks and, kind of made his way in the automotive scene since then.
Yeah, the rest is history, as they say, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're probably around the same age, and I always, like to, in my age, we were reading BMX Plus, we were riding bikes and stuff. Like, were you kind of finding yourself skateboarding, BMXing, or what were you into growing up?
Oh, man, I bought a pink Dyno Comp 2 in about 86 that I wish I would have kept.
Yep.
Saving my birthday money, Christmas money, mowing lawn money, shoveling snow money, you name it. I did scratched and clawed to get that thing, but yeah, definitely BMX bikes, skateboards, that was my youth.
So many of us, I recently was doing a flip through of one of the magazines, and I went up to the cash and carry where I remember, purchasing it at, and I thought to myself, like, man, before I was reading Mini Truckin, I literally was like, the video game magazines and, the BMX and even skateboarding, just, I mean, we could just, when my parents were shopping, I'd be flipping through the magazines like crazy, just reading. Because, I mean, even though they were like $3, man, it was like, I'd ask my parents, hey, can we get this? Nah, put that back, man. That type of shit.
I lived that same experience. I did most of my reading in the grocery store magazine aisle.
Yep.
Kids today will probably never have to deal with that.
Yep.
But it's it's great memories. I mean, BMX Plus was my first one that I was into, and I actually took a vacation to Florida when I was probably 13 or so, and got hooked on skateboarding while I was in Florida on vacation. So,
man,
the BMX bike took a little bit of a back burner for a while. I still have one.
Yep.
I have a 24-inch Sunday Cruiser. I also have a 24-inch mid-school Schwinn that I built up for my wife, and she hates.
Damn.
I have my OG Schwinn. What was that thing called? Tornado.
Okay, wow.
That I got in 78. I'm gonna go ahead and date myself. My dad took me to the hardware store, which back then most hardware stores would double as a Schwinn dealer, and let me pick out my first real bike after I learned how to ride without training wheels. It's a great memory I have of my childhood.
Now, that the one? Was that because I think that they had, looking up photos, they had one that looked like a normal bike, but then they also had one, the 77 Schwinn Tornado I'm looking at here. It had the banana seat on it. Was it like that version?
It wasn't really a banana seat. It was more of a moto seat.
Okay.
It was flat, but it was long like a banana seat. But it was a black, what they call it, the Stingray frame that they used on just about every bike back then.
Yep, I see it now in the Google images. Yep.
It had yellow fenders on it, yellow number plate. I think it had a mid-frame plate too, if I remember correctly. Red grips. I still got the OG grips on that thing.
Dang, man.
It's original tires. I mean, my 7-year-old asks me all the time when he gets to ride it, and I'm like, never.
Yeah, you're like, dude, that's the time capsule.
Yeah, I'm afraid to air up the tires. They'll probably explode. So, but yeah.
Well,
definitely grew up on a BMX bike.
Yeah, our local friend Charlie, he had he kind of rents this little space that's ultra clean where he does bike restorations. He's really into it. And this guy that was, I guess, the main guy of the building for a certain time, his name was Rich. I went in there and he had about 7, maybe 8 Schwinn bikes, and some of them had the old BMX, not the BMX, but the where they could put the baseball bat. And they had these little accessories. You probably remember some of that. And I didn't know the Schwinn stuff as much. From my dad's era, he talked about the Schwinns and everything. But a couple weeks ago when I was in Pittsburgh, Matt Weathers had told me, he goes, "Yo, Jay, you need to go by this museum." And I was like, okay, I'll check it out. So when I Google what's called the Bicycle Museum or Bicycle Heaven. And, dude, I'm telling you, for anybody that's into bikes or, just loves the stuff, grew up in our era, dude, he had hundreds and hundreds of Schwinns, dude.
Dude, I watched that YouTube video you put up on that thing. That's crazy. Dude. How many? I mean,
yeah, I was just how? I'm like, how, man? It's I have 2 bikes. I'm like, yeah, I'm all excited. And what was cool is when I talked to the dude, he was so nice. He wasn't oh man, I got more stuff than you. He was just man, I'm fortunate. A lot of people donate stuff there. And I think some of them probably, put it on display. I don't know if they get it back or whatever. But a couple people were people that got sick when they were younger, and then before they passed away, they donated it. So those are a lot of cool stories. But yeah. So you grew up. Now, what city, in kind of Texas, are we talking? Was it? It wasn't Houston or Austin, was it?
Oh, that was way pre-Texas. I was born in Michigan in
okay
in the 73. My dad worked for IBM, which we always joked as a kid that meant I've been moved. About every 6 years, he would take a promotion, and we would move somewhere else. So,
yeah, because that was the job. I mean, that's one of the big name companies for many years still.
Oh yeah, and he worked there his entire life. So
wow.
But 79, 80, we moved, packed up from Coloma, Michigan. We moved to Appalachian, New York.
Kind of upstate. Wow. Okay.
I lived there till about 87. That's where, in fact, I bought that pink Dyno Comp 2. If you read BMX Plus in the 80s, you probably remember the ads, but there's a ad in the back of all of them for West BMX.
Yeah, I do remember that.
Huge mail order place. The kid started it out in his basement up there in New York, I should say. And had moved into a giant warehouse by the time I met him. And man, you talk about every kind of bike you could think of. I mean, that was candy store for me as a kid. I used to go when my mom would go shopping in that area. I'm like, hey, can you drop me off the BMX place? And I would just go hang out over there for, 30 minutes, an hour while she shopped and then get picked back up. So great memories there.
Dude, I'm telling you, like, it was funny because last weekend, for some reason, my wife and son and I, we went to Red Robin. She's like, man, we haven't really went out for lunch on the weekend in a while. So we go over there, and she's like, well, let's go walk around the mall a little bit. And so I go into, like, there's like one main skate store, but there's kind of like a Vans, and then Vans sell stuff. But man, I go immediately to those like cases where they have the wheels and the bearings and stuff, and it brings me back to the time of, when there were like more skate shops than there are now. And I could just sit there and I'd look through the stickers and I'd be like, oh man, I want this deck. And I think back in our day, I don't know, it seemed like decks were like $39 or maybe $49 back in those days.
I want to say that's probably the going rate. And it was like pulling teeth to get a new deck out of my dad. I remember back then.
Yep.
My memory's not great, but I remember dumb stuff.
Uh-huh.
And my first skateboard that I got, in fact, I got it on that vacation to Florida, was the Volterra.
Oh, yes.
And, I know you love Back to the Future.
Yes.
There was that same board that Marty McFly rides in the movie, and I got it in some department store down there. My mom got us something to do, basically. My sisters were younger than me. They got like beach toys and stuff. She bought me that skateboard, and it was actually before the movie had come out.
Oh, that's great.
So I was cruising around down there, on that skateboard, and just fell in love with it.
That's pretty cool, man. Yeah, because that stuff is like, when you said something earlier, it made me think like, from each generation, there's always like that. Man, I wish I still would have had that, and and I'm not talking like a '57 Chevy, like okay, if you were 16, but like I'm talking from the kid days, like it might be, I had that little toy gun or something. But like you said earlier, from our era, I think we've hit an age where we're like, dude, if I could just have the bike that I had, like that one bike, like my friend Paul, one of my best friends, he always talked about, I think he had like I'm going to mess it up, probably like a Mongoose Decade or something like that around 87. And it was one
that was a good bike.
Yeah, and how often do you hear from your friends like, oh, I had that, but it got stolen, dude? Because we would leave them out,
Oh, yeah. I mean, shoot. Then you had all them rich kids that got all the hutches. Man, none of us poor kids could afford those. But
exactly.
But yeah,
that's crazy.
My first BMX bike after the Schwinn was one of those, I want to say Montgomery Ward probably.
Uh-huh.
Heavy steel ones with the moto mags on it.
Uh-huh.
And that, I probably trace my customizing back to then. Yep. I remember blowing that thing apart. Me and my dad sanded it down and custom painting it because I wanted a new bike and he wasn't having it. So we just changed it up a little bit. And I think I remember buying red and white checkerboard pad set for it, and putting the MX brakes that they used to sell back there in the day, and just anything you could get for a bike. I was into it in that era. So
yeah, and it's funny because I remember where the couple of bike stores now in Land O'Lakes, like we had this one on this big intersection, and like I almost wish sometimes because back then we didn't really have phones. We didn't have camera phones, but we didn't really have cameras with us at all times or any time. So yeah, so I sometimes wonder, like I love finding these pages of like people that had a photo of an intersection from like 1984 But I always wondered, I was like, man, I wish I had photos of that bike shop I used to go in because, dude, like you said, it was literally a kid in a candy store for someone of our age,
Oh, yeah, it was the place. I mean, I don't know how it was down in Florida, but in New York where I grew up, the other thing that was real big was the ATCs. And, I'd love to go to the Honda dealership and just look at them all.
Oh, yes.
Steal all the brochures and take them home like you're going to save up money.
Yep.
But, yeah, definitely all the places where you could go and just look at stuff. It's not like it is now where you can just it's not the same thing to look at it on the phone.
Yeah, it's not. And like you said, it was funny because I found this one page randomly on Instagram, and this guy has, I don't know how many three-wheelers and like little, now they call them pit bikes, but like those little motorcycles from the 80s, but they're all like Hondas, and the stuff that was expensive, and man, like that's what he collects. And I'm like, holy crap, man! Like I could see having one, but this guy's got a bunch of them. But it made me think too, like even like the Goonies. There's that end scene when Richard Donner, he's one of the guys that he plays a little cameo, and he rides up, and they're both on 3-wheelers. Yeah, you remember in our age, or in our day, the 3-wheelers. I remember a couple kids around us had those, but then they ended up getting banned or something because they said they were too dangerous.
Yeah, the 3-wheel death machines, man.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know if you ever spent any time riding those things, but they were super easy to flip over if you didn't have any sort of riding skill at all.
Yep. I know
my sister took a tumble on one once and got banged up pretty good. So
yeah. So now they're kind of like collectors. I mean, obviously, people collect everything, but like having one of those, or when my neighbor Jeff, he had talking about quads or 4-wheelers, he had an 87, 88 Kawasaki Mojave, I think. And I forget. I remember he was like, "Oh, it has reverse on it." And that was like one of the new features then, because it was like none of them, I guess, had it. I don't know, the history of them, but man, we had so much fun riding that thing. It was like a 110, I think. But dude, like if I could find one today, man, I'd freaking ride that thing.
Yeah, I am one of them people that gets on Facebook Marketplace and just look and dreams like, oh, if I could run across, the one I wanted when I was a kid, I would get yelled at by the wife because I decided to spend money on something really dumb that I needed.
Right. Yeah, exactly. My wife's like, all right, you got enough shit, man. She's like, all right, here's the deal. Get rid of most of your shit, and then you can get more shit. And I'm like, but I can't get rid of this. She's like,
this is all good stuff, man.
Exactly. This is an investment. So, yeah, roll eyes. But, well, that's cool. So the other thing that I thought was cool about the bike stuff is I had picked up through a buddy over in Orlando area. He had secured this guy Tony Vickers. Somehow he had a buddy that he's a garbage guy, and he had found a bike that was laying in the garbage, and it was like an 83 Diamondback. Okay, and it needs to be fully restored, but due to its complete. But here was the cool thing: it had the original stickers, and one of the stickers was from up in Michigan, I think it was. And back in those days, I guess in different townships and stuff, I don't know if you remember this, but I guess you had to get your bike like registered, kind of like a little license for it.
Huh.
And it had
I never experienced that.
Yeah, it had a sticker on it. So like I was like, man, I'm from Land O'Lakes, man. We didn't have any of that crap, dude. You know what I mean? So I always thought that was cool.
So I know Michigan, I mean, you have to register like snowmobiles and ATVs, all that stuff has to be registered because they have huge state system of trails. It's almost like highways.
You're right. Yep.
So they make everybody pay taxes on it. That's what they're getting after.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the money. Yeah, there's a place here, Croom, that a lot of people go to, and I've been up there, and I mean, a lot of the riders, I mean, you can get lost up in that. I guess it's considered a state park, but like you have to, I think, pay each time you go, or you buy like the yearly pass to it. But a lot of good memories growing up, and it's funny because people collect a lot of that stuff, the riding gear, the boots, the helmets. I mean, all that stuff has changed over time.
Yeah.
But now, so, you fast forward to kind of moving around a little bit, obviously, with your dad having the IBM job. But so what, like, really ended up sparking the automotive thing? Like, was it something in high school?
Well, my dad, he was the quintessential 70s Corvette guy.
Okay.
He owned what year was it? I think it was a 65 Corvette was his first one.
Damn.
That's the car he met my mom in.
Ah, okay.
And then, he sold it to build his first house. Shortly after building the house, he bought a brand new 71 Corvette. Hated it.
Really?
He said it was the worst investment he ever made. He drove it for a year and sold it.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of years later, he ended up picking up a 72 convertible in the British Racing Green. Actually purchased it. I don't know if it's a kind of an up north thing, but there's a automotive business up there called Lane Automotive.
Okay.
It's a huge mail order warehouse, big up north. He bought it from the owner of Lane Automotive, George Lane, and it's still sitting in my parents' garage to this day. So I grew up, going to Corvette shows on the weekends because he always belonged to a Corvette club, especially New York. A lot of car shows with the Corvette. In fact, that is where we did the first restoration on it. And I can remember helping him work on it in the garage, pull it all apart to take it to get painted.
Really? So was he like
then,
a do-it-yourself? Like, was he just like a weekend warrior, kind of like, what I would maybe even consider myself? Or what?
Yeah, that was his thing. He liked to tinker in the garage. My grandfather, his dad, was a full-blown mechanic his whole life. So I spent my childhood, chasing him around in his garage, messing with whatever he was messing with. So he had a full-blown mechanic shop. And then my uncle on my mom's side, he as well had a huge mechanic shop. Did a lot of small engine repair, and then he moved into my cousins got into racing. So all kinds of race car stuff growing up around that area. And then, but with the Corvette stuff, I was always going to car shows. And then, fast forward, we moved from New York to Maryland. That would have been, like I said, about 87, I think, 88, right around there. Moved to Middletown, Maryland, which is a little turd speck between Frederick and Hagerstown are the two big towns that I'm nearby. And out in the middle of nowhere in the neighborhood, here I am, the little skateboard BMX kid, nowhere to really ride because it's, a under construction neighborhood, but there was plenty of 2x4s and plywood left over from building brand new houses. So me and my little group of buddies were always building ramps and stuff.
Oh yeah.
And then till we got in trouble by the builders for, our pieces of wood was getting a little longer than what they were considering scrap, I guess you could say. And so my dad, in his infinite wisdom, decided that he would just bite the bullet, and we built a half pipe in the backyard.
Oh, now we're talking, dude. Yeah, you were one of those kids that had some cool shit like that, dude.
I had a little, 6 foot tall, 8 foot wide mini ramp growing up, and I spent basically all my free time out there, from probably, I think we built that when I was 14. So 15, 16, get my driver's license. And he's like, what kind of car you want? We got to start looking for you a car. So, we started, he took me to look at a Camaro, V6, like 73 Camaro that a friend of his had for sale. And I liked it. Then he found out how much insurance was going to cost for it. And he was like, no, screw that. You ain't getting a Camaro. So we got to think something more economical. And, back then, I mean, the compact cars were just hitting everywhere. And Escorts, the Escort GTs and all the little Escorts with all the accessories on them. There's a few of them running around that I'd see. I'm like, a Ford Escort looks like it'd be, I'd like one of those. So he started, asking around looking for a deal on a used car from his buddies. And he drags home a 1985 Ford Tempo. I don't know if you've ever seen a Ford Tempo.
Oh yeah,
but it's like the horrible version of an Escort. It's not cool at all. It was a black 5-speed car. At least it was 2-door. It wasn't a 4-door, but it had belonged to a friend of his that he drove it 80 miles each way its entire life back and forth to work. And so it had, close to 100,000 miles on it already. The paint was all faded. It was pretty beat up, white wall tires, the whole bit. And so he drags that home and is like, here's your first car. I'm like, okay, thank you. He goes, you're going to have to learn how to drive a stick shift. So he tried to teach me, got mad, wasn't patient enough. So Mom taught me how to drive it in about an hour. So I was good to go, cruising around in the beat up Tempo. And then had my first fender bender, 6-8 months after I got my license. So we had to go take it off, drop that in a body shop. Well, it was one of them little mom and pop body shops out there. They did quote unquote custom work. And so my dad was like, well, the car's pretty beat up. We might as well get it all painted. So he got a whole fresh coat of black paint on there. And they had a pinstriper that worked at the place. I can't remember his name. local Maryland guy, added some hot pink and bright blue, the heartbeat generic stripe down the side of it. And then he painted the stock wheels black for me because they were silver, but the paint was flaking off them real bad.
Right, because the paint in that era wasn't that good.
I was murdered out before murdered out was cool.
You invented it.
Yeah, and then so I had this Tempo painted up, and I was kind of getting into like the car stereo stuff from a kid I work with. Had a 12-inch home speaker in the back of his Honda Accord, I think it was.
That's old school. Yeah, I remember we'd have the home speakers in the car.
Yeah, and so he's like, "Oh yeah, you should check out car stereos stuff. They got all kinds of cool stuff." So again, I worked at a pizza place, so I trucked my way down to the grocery store down the strip center, and found I think it was Car Stereo Review back then, and so I picked up an issue of that, and that opened up my eyes to a whole nother thing of customizing because I had never seen anything like that. So, all my pizza money went to buying, I think I had a couple of 10s in it and an amp. And I think I had a Pioneer CD player in there that I paid $600 for on clearance or something ridiculous. It took me forever to save up for that. But yeah, the Escort was my jumping off point, or not the Escort, but the Tempo. And just the magazines were there in the same aisle. I think I ran across a Truckin magazine. God, it would have had to have been 89.
Good era.
Or 90. It had I can't even tell you what was on the cover of it, but I think it was, it had some cool paint jobs and stuff. So I was like, I'm going to check this out. And man, talk about a random occurrence, but there was a tech article in that magazine. Sean Mahaney lowering an LOMEGO. He had an 89 LOMEGO that he did a tech article for. And I think it was probably in 90 because it was right before I graduated. And I was like, man, that's cool. I mean, stocked the Snowflake Isuzu wheels on it still, just a set of low pros, cranking the torsion bars, putting a block in it, your basic drop job and an LOMEGO. Probably nobody but me remembers that tech article. But I saw that thing. I'm like, man, that thing is cool.
Damn, dude, good memory.
I filed it away in my mind. I think it was probably a year before I graduated. And, graduation day, all your money comes in from your grandparents and your relatives. And so I had a pretty good chunk of money. And my dad always said, as soon as you graduate, you can buy whatever you want. So I was still kind of into compact cars. So I went and looked at like a Honda Civic Si. And then I looked at another Camaro because Dad wanted me to look at a Camaro.
Oh yeah, you got to do what Pops is asking.
He checked the price of insurance again and said, "Nope, you're not getting a Camaro."
Yeah, because you're under 25, and man, it was so expensive.
It's all bad. So I was like, I forget where we were running around down by looking at cars, going from dealer to dealer, and there was an Isuzu dealership down there, and walked in, 18-year-old, fresh graduate, pocket full of money, and they had a red LOMEGO sitting in the middle of the showroom floor. And as soon as I saw it, I remembered that article, and I was like, "Oh, I want this,
dude."
This
so it was stuck in your mind like that.
Oh, it was like as soon as I saw it, I was like, "Oh, this is what I gotta have."
Yo, it's ODB. You're listening to Our Lifestyle Podcast, brought to you by Custom Car Show Productions, which includes Orange Beach Invasion, After Hours, Scraping the Coast, and Bayou Showdown, which is this November, Slidell, Louisiana, the weekend before Thanksgiving. Look it up, Bayou Showdown on Facebook. We also want to thank Buddy and Ryan at Graphics Mafia. If you're in the need for stickers, decals, a wrap, anything you can think of with vinyl, reach out to the fine folks at Graphics Mafia, GRAPHIX Mafia.com. They're also on Facebook, TikTok, and Instagram. Let them know that OLP sent you. Back to the interview, already in progress.
And it wasn't a base model because it had the 31-inch tires and the aluminum wheels. So it was a little bit upgraded. It didn't have a back seat. It had a tape deck and 2 speakers in it, so it wasn't the upgraded model at all. I was like, this is it. This is what I'm getting. So Dad, goes to wheeling and dealing with it because this was 91, and that was a brand new 90 that they still had. They was sitting in their showroom.
Okay.
So it was like a leftover. They said they used it as a demo, and it had like 100 miles on it or something like that. So he goes to his wheeling and dealing, and ended up. I paid $10,500 is what I ended up financing out the door with a back seat. They were going to install a back seat for me.
Oh, really?
But
so it didn't have that?
No, that was an option.
Wow. Okay. I didn't realize that.
So, yeah. Oh, yeah. The Amigos initially came, back seat was an option. And so he wheeled and dealed, got me the back seat. I think the back seat took like a month to come in. But, oh, man, you talk about it. I was in heaven riding around in that thing. I thought, brand new car. I mean, pulled all my stereo equipment out of my Tempo, transferred most of it into that. I think I changed my 10s for 12s when I got that thing. But, yeah, that was the start of the adventures of LOMEGO.
yeah, which is cool because I always was curious. Obviously you gave the backstory on how you got involved with cars, which I thought was awesome. But when, obviously getting to know more of the history of mini trucks and reading the magazine and stuff over the years, we got a lot of love for the, just last week we were celebrating, unfortunately Courtney's passing 10 years ago. And we, looked at that Spring Splash 94 cover that some may know this, but when you look at that cover or some of the insert photos, like kind of inside, we found out this history, like that truck was out there and it was a part of that, right? So
yes, it was.
Yeah, so it made me think like, okay, I want to know the backstory on it. So you bought it new, and then did you start working on it pretty soon after that?
I did the stereo system stuff first, and then kind of enjoyed it. My dad was, very opposed to me lowering it.
Oh yeah.
He thought it was stupid because I still had that issue of trucking sitting around in my room. And I'm like, I'm going to lower this thing. And I drove it for probably, my first year, that's my first and only year of college. So I drove it almost the whole year of college. I didn't mess with the suspension on it. I just had my loud stereo. And, this is, 92 probably. I was in, I guess it was the local truck accessory shop in Frederick. It's called Trick Trucks, I think is what it was called. And they had a board in there where people could post, used stuff for sale or whatever. And I'm just standing there at the counter. I'm looking at this wall, and there was somebody selling 5 225 60 15 used BF Goodrich CompTAs.
Uh-huh. And
I'm like, that's the size tire I want.
Mm-hmm.
So I, ripped off the tag, pre-cell phone, got to go home and call this guy. So I call the guy. He wanted $100 for all 5 tires. He goes, they're not great, but they still got some life in them.
Uh-huh.
I'm like, I don't care. $100, I want them.
Yep.
So I bought the tires, and I hid them when I got home behind the garage so Dad wouldn't see them because I didn't want him knowing my plans. I had my issue of Truckin' Magazine from 90 or whatever it was. I went down to Trick Trucks. I bought a set of 3-inch lowering blocks, and I bought some Deutsch Tech lowered shocks, I think is what they sold there at the time. And I collected all my parts and went over to my best friend's dad's garage because he had a trucking company back then, and he had a lot of tools and jacks and jack stands and everything. So me and my friend went over there on a Saturday morning, and not knowing anything, I lowered the car. He had one of those old school arm buster tire machines.
Yeah,
and we swapped all the 31-inch tires off, and I put the low pros on there. We lowered the back 3 inches, lowered the front about 3 inches. And, when that jack came out from under there and it hit the ground, happiest day ever.
Yeah, because it's that feeling. Like that feeling was like, man, you get to see it, and even if it was just a little lower or the stance, it was like, dude, that was a good feeling.
Oh man, it was, and I'd already up there. I mean, cruising, that was the thing. You'd go hit the strip down in Frederick, or you'd go to Hagerstown and you do the loops up there, sit in parking lots, teenager stuff. Shoot the crap with all the local hangout kids. So I'm cruising around, grinning ear to ear, thinking I'm hot crap at the local cruise night with the other, maybe 4 or 5 mini trucks that were in that town at the time. And they're like, oh yeah, there's a car show coming up. I think it was in Baltimore.
Okay.
I had never been to a a truck show or a mini truck style show. And so me and my best friend load up right into Baltimore, which it was shady then, just like it's shady now in Baltimore.
Right.
And there was a big park. They had this car show set up. I, pull in, park next to my buddies, wipe it down, sitting out there. And I hear, a scraping sound coming in. And there was a blue LOMEGO driving in that was just dragging over every little pebble and rock in the driveway. And that was the first time I saw anything ever drag.
Uh-huh. And
I was like, whoa. And he parks it, and I'm walking around it. I'm like, how did you get it so low? I'm still a kid. I don't know anything about anything. And come to find out, he had pulled the torsion bars out, and it just rode on the bump stops in the front. And in the rear, he had, jerked all the leaf springs out of it and put a 3-inch block in it. So it had an air shock in the back, I think. And he would go to car shows, and he would jack it up, and he would pull the bump stops out of the front and let it hit the ground and drive around.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would jack it back up when he left. But that was the lowest. School. I was like, it kind of took the wind out of my sails of my 3-inch drop, and I saw one that low. But
yeah, because even back then, there were guys that were doing that, but far few in between. Mostly I'd say on the West Coast they were really getting crazy
it was
like
definitely
that.
A West Coast thing.
So for you to see that, it must have literally if you weren't already had the bug that bit you, that was dude, all right, the monster swallowed me. I'm ready to go to the next level.
Made it worse. Yeah.
Yeah. You're like, dude, you talk about a junkie, like a car junkie. That's all right, man. Now this is the whole gateway is done. I'm on to the next thing now.
Oh yeah. And then make matters worse, I think I went to another car show that was at I think it was a Circuit City. It was a stereo show in it was in Virginia. And I went to that car show. It was about the second one I think I went to. And a name from the past here. You ever heard of Wilt Built? Todd Wilt.
Yes. Oh yeah.
Okay. He was driving a Mazda around at that car show that had hydraulics on the front.
Oh damn. Yeah. So you were seeing some cool shit.
I was seeing some cool stuff. I was bombarded. And then a few months later, Dad took another job in Texas. So packing all our stuff up, after I meet all these people, and we're moving across the country. So
oh yeah.
We moved to Round Rock, Texas, which is a suburb of Austin, and drove the truck here. Got settled in. Mom and Dad were building a house in Round Rock. They put us up in an apartment, cruising around, trying to get my bearings, so to speak. I don't know anybody in Texas, so I go back to what I know. I go to the car stereo shops and hang around. Seeing, hey, anybody got any mini trucks? They still sponsor Heatwave, but Custom Sounds here in Austin, Texas.
Mm-hmm.
I went in there, and they had a full show Mazda, in their showroom with a huge stereo wall in it. It was slammed, shaved door handles. Everything you'd see in the magazines. Back
right
then.
there, boom.
And I'm like, it's right in front of me, for the first time, wow. And I'm like, where did you get all this stuff done? And they told me of a little body shop in Austin called Custom Car Crafters.
Okay.
So I drove over there, just to see what all they had going on.
Yeah, because your interest was piqued.
Oh yeah, the owner of the place, Richard, he had a little convertible Toyota at the time with handmade, Ferrari style vents in the bed because that was cool. Ground effects, the Radical Tops convertible. It was sitting in the out front. There was a little other lowered white Nissan there. Ended up being one of my lifelong best friends. He was my best man at my wedding. David Schilling. That was the first time I met him.
Wow.
And he was a dick when I first met him. I tell him that every time.
And here's you at the beginning saying, I don't have a good memory.
Yeah. And he goes, I don't remember being a dick. And I'm like, you were a dick.
Trust me, you're a dick. You were a dick.
But the one thing he did tell me is where the mini trucks went on Saturday nights.
Okay, so that was like a little bit of intel for you to go, okay, where's my next step along this journey? Yep.
So I found the parking lot to hang out in. Met a bunch of cool guys there. That a few of them I still talk to this day. And month or so later, my dumbass is changing lanes in traffic and run smooth into the back of a little trailer that I didn't see in front of me and smushed the bumper, the grill, and the hood on the LOMEGO. And so I'm like, well, I guess I'm taking it to that body shop that I know. Yeah. It's the only one I know.
Yeah, so like mini truckers, we were the only ones that were kind of like, yeah, it sucks I got in an accident, but now I can do 1, 2, and 3 with this little insurance money that I might be getting.
That's exactly what happened. We drove it over there, and again, my dad went with me because by this time he thought it was kind of cool. He would go hang out with me at the little car shows. He'd drive his Corvette, and I'd drive my little truck. And we went in there, and we ordered a AIM Industries, which at the time might have been Radical Tops, fiberglass grill, which I don't know if you ever dealt with one of those. That's about the biggest piece of junk you could ever order in your life.
I had something similar.
They're kind of close to fitting, but not really.
Yeah, I had the polyurethane back like in 97, 98. I ordered it from Mini Truckin. It was one of those big, like, it was the bumper cover. And I'd see it in the magazine. I was like, oh, that's so cool. And then you get it. You're like, this is all it is? Like, how does this stick on? And they're like, oh, no, because I didn't know shit. And then I took it to a place. But yeah, they were the same. So, yeah, I ordered that AIM Industries grill because I wanted something custom on it. And they had a painter there, Don Palmer, who since passed away, but he was old and grumpy at the time. He did the yellow on the front of it with the breakaway, the mini truck breakaway paint job on it. And I got it back out of that body shop, and it was like a whole new level for my truck in the area because I had custom paint. So, again, hanging out with my little core group of buddies at the time. I went to my first Texas heat wave. It would have been in 94, I think. Damn.
I think 94 was my first heat wave. And you talk about a culture shock. I had never seen so many mini trucks in one place. We're reading all the magazines by this time. You're looking through Mini Truck and you see all the car shows, all the tech articles, all the California stuff. And I'm like, I want to go to a show in California. I just want to go to a show in California. And one of my buddies was like, heck, I'll go too. And we decided Easter Spring Splash would be our jam. And that next year we drove out and made the trek to Parker, Arizona.
Oh, yeah.
And, had our minds blown.
Didn't
know, like I said, it was just two of us in my truck. We drove all the way out there with a tent. We knew no one. We didn't know what to expect. We ended up, we pull in. I don't know if you ever went to a river run in the mid to late 90s out there, but it's not like a car show you go to anywhere else.
No.
Because when you get there on Friday, that's just a roll-in day. There's no car show. It's just everybody setting up for camping. We're out there. We're kind of cruising the circuit, trying to figure out where we're going to tent, and ended up meeting a guy who was like, hey, y'all are from Texas? And I'm like, yeah. He goes, I got a buddy from Texas that's over here coming to the show. You should come camp with us.
Oh, damn.
I'm like, cool. And so we went over to this group of guys we had never met before in our life, shook hands, set up a tent. and spent the entire weekend over there. And talk about meant to be. That guy was that I met was Eric Scarlett. His buddy from Texas was named Booger, and they were all members of the then pretty much brand new Club Negative Camber. So,
oh yeah,
I met Courtney and Brian, and all the OGs, Mike Peters, Tom Horn, Sal. I mean, all the San Diego guys were there, and we spent the weekend hanging out with them. And when Courtney went to do that, epic cover shot on Saturday afternoon, he was like, "Texas, get your truck."
Yeah,
and
he's like, "We want to represent as many people as we can from here."
Yeah, pulled us up in the spot, and funny, he took the picture. When it came out in the cover, I think all you can see is like the corner of me and my yellow hat, because of course I had a hat that matched my truck because I was a goon. But
yeah.
But at least I wasn't wearing mandals like half the people on that cover. But
yeah, that's funny. The times have changed. Yeah, and that was April 7th through the 10th, 94, and we know that because of the coverage. And to your point, the cool thing about it is that there were so many people there. And for instance, this last year at Mini Nats, or actually just a couple months ago, Southeast Mini Nats, one of our favorite shows in Maggie Valley, I got a chance to meet Chris Kudo, which, he's down to earth. He's a good dude. Obviously had him on, but, knew he was a good dude. Talked to him on the phone a few times, but like meeting him in person, right? And I forget if it was there. I think it was there where he was like, "Yeah, man, I was there too. I was at that river run." I was like, "No way." And he goes, "Yeah." He goes, "You can't really see me in the photo, but he goes, I'm there." He goes, "I could point it out." But when you go back and you look at it, and like I've looked at how many people we've tagged over the years. Dude, there was a lot of people there, man.
Oh, there was a ton of people in that picture. I mean, It's funny because, my buddy Boog, Charles Wickham, he's like posed right in front there, front and center with the pink Mazda.
Yes. Neil, is that Charles Wicks, is it? Or
that's Charles Wickham.
Wickham. Okay.
Booger. His name is Booger. You don't have to call him Charles.
Okay, cool. Yeah, because we're going to have him on soon.
Oh, good. Yeah. Make sure you call him Booger every time you refer to him.
Oh, I will.
It upsets him.
Oh, okay. Damn,
I've made it my lifelong journey to call him Booger in front of everybody he's met after that era, so they still know him as Booger.
Is that from Revenge of the Nerds tie-in, or?
No, that is from freaking Courtney Hollowell.
Okay.
At a from what I understand, it was a dinner at a spaghetti warehouse of some sort with the club. And there was an incident with something coming in and out of his nose while he was laughing. And they started calling him Booger from that day on, and it stuck.
Yeah. Well, that's how you get a good nickname.
How all
so
the
at
best
least
nicknames do.
Well, I'd rather have that nickname like that than going, "Yeah, the kid ate boogers when he was a kid," because then that would be like, "Okay, don't call me that."
Yeah.
But because like when like I try to look at dates and like and I'm a little crazy with the stuff, but when it was the 25th anniversary, and I was like, you know what, the way the magazines ran, it was July that year. It was on the cover, but it was shot at Spring Splash, as you know. But going back over the course of time, it was kind of cool because like Chris Anders is there with the Mazda. Troy Hamilton was a guy I met through Instagram, as you mentioned. Booger. Ruben was there. You were there. Chris Kudo and a bunch of different guys. K Daddy, of course. I mean, that was kind of like he was front and not even front and center, front and left side. But the photo when you flip to the coverage, you see LOMEGO chilling back there in the cut, and then it also had show coverage, and it said like minis, custom minis on the windshield banner.
Yeah, that was the truck club I was in at the time.
Yep. Okay.
That was in fact that's the it was the host club for Texas Heatwave for all those years in the 90s. And I had, met those guys from the parking lot, show up there in Round Rock. And just one of them things, you meet the people. And then, like I said, we went out to California.
That's sick.
Again, at that show, that cover where Booger was there, I don't know if you knew, he had a blue Toyota that was the first truck Brian Jendro had ever body dropped.
Oh, really? No, I didn't realize that. I don't think I realized that.
And there was, I think, a little picture of it from the show in the coverage of that magazine. It was a real clean little blue. I think it had billet tri-fans, or fake billet tri-fans on it. It had a pinstripe on it. Real clean truck.
Mm-hmm.
Booger was supposed to be on that cover shot, but Booger was on air shocks still, and he was pulling up to put his truck in the picture, and it wouldn't lift high enough to get over through the rocks.
I know what picture you're talking about.
To get to where they were. They were to shoot the picture, and Courtney just yelled at him and said, "Forget it," because he was stirring up too much dust, and everybody was trying to wipe down the cars. So that's why Booger's just posing on there, and his truck's not in the picture. So
yeah, because you're right. Because I'm looking at the show coverage here where it says channeling has become a very popular mod in the past couple of years. This was evident by the number of trucks at the event that were just plain slammed. But it makes sense because, dude, you know what? I mean, a lot of stuff, literally the web of mini trucks, a lot of it goes back to Jendro, man. And, you know, I salute that dude. I mean, I really hope that we can get him on. I mean, I know he's a busy guy, but I tell you, man, like, we saw him in the West Coast Influence DVD. But, dude, you talk about, I mean, he also built that first NC truck that was on the cover, the, I call it the
Toxic Toy.
Yeah, Toxic Toy.
Yep.
And, I mean, dude, that guy is as OG and as legend as you can get in the main.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like I said, is weird. I mean, a weird thing of coincidence that I was there that weekend.
Yeah,
and we ended up camping with him. Because, I mean, that was the weekend that Courtney had the ovals printed up the first time. You know, Modern Image Sign Works used to be at every mini truck show back then out there. And they had their trailer set up. And Courtney, you know, those guys came up with that idea, went over there, had a handful of them cut out. And that was the first time they were, you know, because before that, it was like it just said negative camber on the back windows. That was the new logo that busted out at that run.
Yeah, and what was ironic is the listeners last week when we had Mike Peters, he talked, you know, I had kind of picked his brain a little bit because I had heard some intel about, you know, there were some of the beginnings and why they wanted to do it, and it kind of tied into this other mini truck council, but he had kind of talked about that, and I think that's really cool because, I mean, you know how things today are very simple, like, you know, instead of maybe saying Our Lifestyle Podcast, we're going to say, you know, OLP, right? But, like, you look at a truck club, like, back in those days, a lot of the stuff was spelled out, and Mike Peters talked a little bit about, you know, they toyed around with, like, okay, it's going to say negative camber, it's a little long, but just that NC with the oval, I mean, even by today's standards, I mean, that's like as simple and awesome as you can get, you know, in terms of, I think, the simplicity of it.
Oh, yeah. It was, like I said, at the time, I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, those guys were all excited about it. I remember them, you know, scraping the old logos off and putting the new ones on and just being around that, you know, the jungle juice was flowing. And it was just, you know, we had an absolutely epic time out there. You know, come home from that show, you know, fired up, and I'm just like, I got to do more to my truck, you know, because again, I'm kind of, I wasn't rich at the time, but I was, you know, I had my first mechanic job by that time. I was working at a Firestone, you know, mountain and dismounting tires all day and changing oil. So I was a little bit mechanically inclined, but I was dead set on getting my truck lower. And I think right around that time, you know, one of those tech articles came out for doing air shocks from Trendsetters.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I'm putting air shocks on my truck. And, you know, being a kid still, I call, you know, the shop number, and Sean answers the phone over at Trendsetters. And if you talk to anybody that's ever been in that day, you could call Sean and he would talk your ear off if he was interested in not working that day or whatever.
Oh, yeah. But, rest in peace to the homie.
He was the best. He would share any kind of knowledge with you. He was definitely not the guy that was going to was trying to keep secrets. And he told me what all I needed to do and how to do it. And one of the guys I had met at that little Round Rock car show's dad was a welder.
Mm-hmm.
So we went out there on a Saturday and, used the magazine as reference and some little bit of measurements I got from Sean. And we whittled out a set of air shock mounts. And I put a set of those Rancho air shocks on the front of the Amigo and turned the torsion bars down a little further And, back then you ran a little cigarette lighter compressor to, fill them bad boys up to 150 PSI so you could drive around.
Yeah.
But that was my first step, into learning how to lower things further than they should be probably. But, yeah, that was the first big mod I did, followed shortly by we did air shocks in the back of it and, stripped the leaf springs out of it. And by that time I could air it out and I could drag the little cross members on the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And around Texas, at the time, I was probably one of the lower trucks going to all the car shows. And I remember I hooked the transmission cross member off that LOMEGO on a bridge joint, going about 30 miles an hour, cruising around one time, and proceeded to peel that sucker straight back and drove it. Had to have it record to a off-road shop because it was the only shop in town I knew that would do custom stuff. And it was called Off-Road Sound and Security. It was here in Austin.
Okay.
And they put it up on the lift, and I think they charged me like $200, and they cut the stock cross member out of it and built me a new flat one so I wouldn't drag it. And so I was all excited about that. And while they had it up in the air, they went ahead and torched the rear bump stops off for me. And I ended up getting it a couple more inches out of it. So I was happy again.
Yeah, and that was the progression of mini trucking, man.
Oh yeah, and then like I said, I still had the air shocks in the front. So I think I came across the hydraulic pump and a couple cylinders for sale used. And the same guys over there, so I was friends with them by that time. They switched out my air shock mounts in the front, and the guy they had working over there built me some hydraulic mounts. And so I switched over the front of it to hydraulics.
Mm-hmm.
And with the hydraulics, I could lay the front of it, flat on the ground, and it was a spark show after that. And I remember I probably had it done couple months, and you learn from your mistakes at that time.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the off-road shop was not the place to go to get hydraulics put on your mini truck.
But there weren't. But let's be honest, there weren't a lot of places doing.
Yeah,
that
there
kind
was
of
no
stuff.
mini truck shop,
especially not really in Texas. I mean, even as big as
not in
Texas
my
is.
area.
Yeah, not in that or in that era. I don't think.
Yeah, so I ended up peeling a hydraulic mount off the front of that thing one time, going to a car show. So limped it back home to the Firestone where I worked at. I put it up on the lift and looked at what they had done. I guess it was the first time I got a really good look at what they had done. And I'm like, I could have done a better job than that. And the mechanic there, we had a little cracker box welder for emergencies, helped me hammer it back into place and showed me how to weld with the stick welder, which was probably the worst thing I could have learned how to do. And I think the next week I bought a 110 amp MIG welder off the Snap-on tool truck.
Damn, yeah, you wasted no time.
They had gotten it in on trade. It was a tiny little carry-around welder, but it was the welder, and it had a to this day, it's the smallest CO2 argon bottle I've ever seen in my life. It was probably like 1.5 feet tall that they had took on trade. So I, Snap-on truck, you buy now, pay later. So
Right.
I bought that welder, drug it home, and I think I had another friend that came over, and he had some experience welding. I don't know as if he was that great a welder, but he kind of showed me the ins and outs of MIG welding. So, within a few weeks, I had it jacked up my truck and C-notched it. And so, again, a little bit lower, a little closer to the ground.
Oh, yeah.
And then before you know it, I was putting air shock mounts and C-notches in most of the trucks in custom minis at the time. Again, my friend who was a dick to me at the time, David Schilling, went on to have his little white Nissan ended up being an orange, fully shaved body drop Nissan that was featured in Mini Truckin not long after mine was.
Mm-hmm.
I did his truck. Todd Katner, another guy I met in Custom Minis, that actually all these guys ended up coming into the Texas chapter of Canberra when we got in. But his was the first, like, I think my truck still just had front hydraulics on it.
Mm-hmm.
And his was, he had just finished, he worked at a body shop. He had just finished fully shaving. He had a standard cab Mazda, shaved door handles, the Escort headlights, shaved tailgate roll pan, all the smoothed out mods.
Mm-hmm.
Painted it still to this day the slickest coat of bright paint I've ever seen in my life. The truck was absolutely perfect. I had air shocked it before he painted it, and it was on 15-inch Pathfinders.
Mm-hmm.
And we went to a little show in Louisiana, Cajun Mini Nationals, in Jennings, Louisiana, and Courtney loved the truck. He saw it because Courtney was a Mazda guy.
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "Man, this truck is awesome." He goes, "I really want to shoot it, but," he goes, I can't put another truck on Pathfinders in the magazine. We've done too many already."
Uh-huh.
So my buddy came home. He was a little bummed. I was, steadily improving my abilities in my dad's garage. Had moved on to, I was doing step notches.
Mm-hmm.
I had done I did one 4-link on a truck with air shocks, which was a terrible idea. On a little verted Mazda for a buddy of mine. And you had to put like 120 PSI in it before it would move.
Mm-hmm.
And then it would lift up like 6 inches and ride like poo. But that was my first, full suspension 4-link job. And we got back from that show, and Todd was like, "We're going to do my truck all the way." I'm like, "What do you mean we're going to do it all the way?" He goes, "You said you've been talking about body dropping something. Let's body drop my truck."
Oh, snap.
And I'm like, "Let's do it." I was like, if you're willing to, let's do it. So he got home, and I think by that next weekend, he had stripped the entire interior out of it and drove his truck to my dad's garage. I put it up on stands, pulled everything apart. Again, called my phone a friend, Sean Mahaney, and said, "Hey, we're getting ready to, tear into this truck. Anything I should be worried about?" And he, gave me a handful of pointers.
Mm-hmm.
And said, he basically said, "It's just metal. You can't unfix it, or you can't. There's nothing you can't fix," I guess is what you would say.
Yeah, trying to reassure that, hey, if you make a mistake, you can fix it.
Yeah. So my buddy got on the phone with him, ordered. He was working at CNC Hydraulics at the time, making those. They sold those manifolds that everybody was running back in the day.
Mm-hmm.
And we ordered a 6-valve single pump, manifold, and 4 cylinders from it with mini coils. And, Todd's poor little truck blowing apart in my garage. I put a step notch in it, built hydraulic mounts in it all the way around. Got my nerve up with the Sawzall. And, we cut the whole floor out of that truck and dropped it down 2 inches and welded it all back together. And when I finished that truck, while I had it in the shop, he took his hubs and had them re-drilled 5-lug, and I put a Toyota axle in it in the rear.
Okay.
And he ordered a set of 16-inch Elite. I think they were like a 6 or a 7-spoke chrome wheel for it.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as I was finished with it, we bolted all that on, set it on the ground for the first time. And like, mind you, I still hadn't body dropped mine. His was the first one I did. And, we rolled that thing out to its first show. And in fact, I think it might have been a year to the day by the time he got the interior fully finished in it, and got it all ready. We took to that same show, Cajun Mini Nats, a year later.
Oh, wow.
And Courtney flipped out and shot it. He shot it for a feature. And he said it was the most beautiful Mazda he's ever seen in his life.
That's awesome. Yeah, because they look so good when they're low. And like you said, I mean, this was circa 95,
It would have been
96?
96, I think that truck was featured. It was 96, 97
Yep.
when that one was featured.
Yeah,
And,
it's epic, dude.
and that was the first time, they did a little 3-page feature on it. But my little homegrown shop, Underground Customs, mom and dad's garage, so to speak, that was the first time it appeared in the magazine. And, I was just, on cloud, 27, because, that was something that I built with my bare hands and got, it's out there in the magazine. Because, I mean, that is the 90s. The internet was still a baby. And,
Oh, yeah.
That was how you got to see the cool stuff. So finally something, that me and my friends built by ourselves, on the pages of the magazine, we were just blown away.
Yeah.
And
that was before we were getting the AOL CDs in the mail. Like, sign up for AOL.
That was before the AOL CDs.
you know you're old school, Rob, when you can say that.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, man.
But, yeah, that was to this day, in fact, Todd came over and hung out with me, not last week, but the week before. And we sat around, did just the same thing we did back then. Tinkered around with mini trucks in the garage and had a few beers and just told stories about the old days.
Oh, yeah.
And I told him then, I was like, I still can't believe you let me cut up that beautiful truck. He goes, man, I knew you could do it.
Yeah, it was the gateway, as far as I don't want to say getting your feet wet because you were already dabbling and stuff, but it was like, it gave you the reassurance, especially I remember first hearing about body drops and, and understanding what they were. And it was like, oh, they're channeling, they cut your floor and stuff. And I'm thinking, as a young kid, you're like, damn, dude, like structurally, like cutting the vehicle, like, man, you got to know what you're doing. And, but obviously like Sean Mahaney, him having dabbled in so much, rest in peace to the homie, with all that he had done, like he was like kind of the big homie that you could look up to and, like you said, phone a friend to be like, yo, man, I'm about to do this. And he gave you that reassurance because he had already dabbled in it a lot.
And it's funny because when I called Sean and I used to harass him all the time, he was nothing but the coolest dude to me.
Mm-hmm.
And when I body dropped that Mazda and I had a fire limiter, I needed to get my truck lower. Because at this time, I had, I don't know if you're at all familiar with LOMEGOs, but they come with their own special set of circumstances.
Oh, yeah.
The control arms hang down, the cross members hang down, the exhaust hangs down.
Mm-hmm.
By this time, I mean, I had gotten mine pretty low. It laid on the frame in the back, the front set up about, 2 inches because the suspension hung way down. And I had beaten up Sean that whole time I was working on that Mazda. And I said, I really need to figure out something to do with the front of this LOMEGO. He goes, oh, man, just put an S10 suspension under it. That's what I did to mine.
I always remember reading that in the feature.
And it was low.
Yep.
And I'm like, really? He goes, yeah, I just got an S10 suspension out of a junkyard and put it under there.
Yep.
I'm like, how much you charge to do something like that? Because I didn't mind notching a truck and, doing all that stuff, but cutting the whole front clip off, I was like, I don't know if I'm ready for that.
Right, right.
He goes, man, I'll do you a deal, man. Just bring it out here. I could do it in a week.
Wow.
I'm like, bet. I was like, I made plans. Me and a buddy of mine, Chris, we drove to Whittier, California. That's where CNC Hydraulics was located at the time.
Mm-hmm.
In my LOMEGO.
Damn, so you drove it out
in
there.
In December, I left Christmas Day in the afternoon. Me and Chris packed up and took off. He was married at the time. He kissed his wife and his kid goodbye after they opened up presents, and we hauled ass.
Damn, dude, that's true mini truckers right there, bro.
Yeah, we drove all the way to Whittier in a straight shot, switching off driving. Checked into a motel at like 2 a.m. This motel was empty. It was on Whittier Boulevard. I'd never been all the way to California. I had been to, Parker by that time, never to California. So it's my first time in California. Like I said, again, no cell phones. We check into this motel on Whittier Boulevard. It looked okay. we get into the room. It's me and him, mini truckers. We're sharing a room. We get in there. It's one bed, of course. So, we get in there, pass out. So we're on Texas time. I wake up. It's probably 7 in the morning their time, or their time. It's like 9 for me.
Uh-huh.
I'm cranked, ready to get to get my truck to the shop. I come out of this hotel room on Whittier Boulevard. It was nothing but car lot was packed. It was empty when we checked in.
Oh, right, because they do the Whittier cruises and stuff, right? So
you wish it was the Whittier cruises.
Oh, yo, it's ODB. This is our final break for this episode. We want to give a huge shout out to Garage Gear Clothing. They offer free shipping in the U.S. Go to garagegearclothing.com. Order today. They have shirts for men, women, and children. The West Coast Influence, that's the only place to pick up the only mini truck documentary style film. It's minitruckfilm.com. I want to thank Joey at Get Decked for the continued support. If you're a show promoter or you want your vehicle on a skate deck, Joey can do it. Look up Get Decked, just how it sounds, Facebook, Instagram. No order is too small. He'll do as minimum as one, but of course he can take care of plenty like he does for OLP all the time. Lastly, if you want to order official Our Lifestyle Podcast merchandise, including our latest Out of Air, paying homage to Back to the Future 2, simply go to ourlifestylepodcast.com and place an order. Miggity Mike the Mayor and Mrs. Mayor will ship those generally the next business day. You know how we do. Do not delay. Order today. Enjoy the rest of this episode.
It was nothing but hookers for as far as the eye could see coming out of these hotel rooms. I'm like, oh my God, where the heck are we staying?
Oh my God.
That's the kind of adventures you get into before phones, because you just drive out there with a Rand McNally map in your passenger seat and check into the first hotel you find.
Yeah, talk about kids don't understand these days, because the other day I woke up and what was trending on Twitter was some like big long hashtag before there was GPS. And I was like, oh, what is this? So I tap on it, and it was that, all of those stories of like, I had a Rand McNally, Atlas in my freaking car.
The Atlas. Yeah, that was how I got it from California to Texas and back.
No iPhones.
None. Nothing.
None. Zero.
I might have had a pager at the time.
Right, exactly.
But yeah, so we checked out. I got out of this hotel. We drove to Sean's shop. He pulls the Amigo in. He had already gotten a front clip from the junkyard because I said I was coming. Had his helper power washed it. It was sitting out front. He pulls the truck in there, jacks it up. Straight to work. And to see Sean work
like a machine, right?
Zero F's given. I mean,
he invented that.
Yeah, not to hate on the guy, because rest in peace. He was one of my good friends till he passed. I still talk to that guy.
Yep.
And I don't remember seeing a tape measure around, but yeah, in 5 days' time, he hung that Amigo clip under there.
The S10 clip.
The S10 clip. He ended up having to make some contraptions to make the steering box work, but man, he knocked it out. It laid flat frame when it left his shop, and we left that shop after a 5-day adventure in Whittier at the Hooker Hotel and drove straight to Rezo.
Ah, okay.
And, this was, like I said, by the time we had started the Texas chapter of Camber. So, I drove out to Rezo. The Amigo was fully primed by that time because we had shaved the door handles on it. I shaved the tailgate on it, Frenched in the license plates, all the mods that LOMEGO had at the time when it was painted finally. I drove it out to Rezo that year with my buddy Chris. I think our other buddy David flew out, set up a tent in December, froze our butts off at Rezo. Courtney shopped the truck for its construction zone feature. I think this would have been 96, 97 as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I got my little blurb for Construction Zone fame back then. And, we took off from the show. And, I burnt up a wheel bearing in the middle of Arizona from the junkyard clip. And ended up having to fly home from Tucson after getting a ride from some guy in a Trans Am. Me and my buddy, he drove us to the Tucson airport. I left my truck in a storage lot, flew home, and then my mom and dad actually drove out the next weekend and picked up the truck from the storage lot and drove it back home for me. And I tell you what, I heard a lot about that trip after spending all that money getting that clip put on for my dad about that burnt up wheel bearing.
Really?
So, I parked the truck, we got it home. I parked it in my driveway, a little disheartened.
Mm-hmm.
But by this time we had, I was working at a Jeep mechanic job, doing repair work on Jeeps of all things.
Mm-hmm.
I ended up swapping my good buddy Booger. I had his Toyota that he needed to get rid of at the time that was fully primered. All the body work, done by Brian at Chop Shop, body dropped. By this time, it did have front airbags in it, done by them. And he had to get rid of it. He couldn't keep it. So I ended up swapping him a Isuzu Pup, an 85 that was my beater,
mm-hmm.
for his Toyota. And I was driving that back and forth to the Jeep place. And all the guys that worked at the Jeep place hated on me all day, every day for my mini truck in their Jeep parking lot. And, the boss always had this thing where he's like, you guys can do whatever you want on the weekends. Everybody has a key. You can come in here, use the rack if it's open, use the tools,
mm-hmm.
Just
Cool.
clean up after you're done. So by this time I was doing, quite a bit of mini truck work on the side. So I brought a buddy of mine, his little Toyota in, and, we airbagged the front of it on the lift in a day. And, I cleaned up my mess, didn't think nothing of it, took off. And I caught a reaming for that the next Monday that I was up there because one of the other guys was bitching that I was tying up the rack all day. And didn't quite see eye to eye after that. And they just told me it was probably better off that I go do something else.
Oh, damn.
And I was like, you know what? I am going to go do something else. So I went home. My truck was still broken in the driveway. I'm driving Boog's body drop Toyota around. Radar, I was good friends with him.
Mm-hmm.
I still hadn't body dropped my Amigo yet, by the way. Radar's like, body drop my truck.
Oh, snap, the space cab.
The space cab. He brought the space cab to me. That was probably one of the first paying jobs I did as a business in my garage.
Nice.
So the second truck I ever body dropped was Radar's.
Dude, that's a pretty good little history there, man.
Yeah, so I did that truck. It took me a few weeks. I knocked it out, got it done, got paid. I was, feeling good. So decided I'm going to body drop mine finally, since, I'm the one doing all the work and I don't have a body drop truck.
Yeah, this is probably 96, right? Because if I remember correctly, you had the truck, you had LOMEGO at Rezo 95 and 96, I think.
Yes. Yeah. So 95 or 96, it probably wasn't body dropped.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think 96 was when they shot for the Construction Zone. So after getting back, and it, like I said, it laid derelict in the driveway for a couple months as I worked on Radar's truck. I finished Radar's truck. I pulled mine in there finally. I think, it was probably a few months after that because, I was in business for myself now.
Oh, yeah.
And I was, doing as many trucks as fast as I could. I think when I finally got around to bringing my truck in there, it was 2 weeks before Texas heat wave, probably that year in 96. And I was pretty good friends with Brian, Jendro, and all those guys from the Chop Shop by that time. Because when we hauled that red Mazda out to Rezo in 96,
mm-hmm.
I think it was, or 97. The years all run together.
Oh, yeah.
But when we went out there, we didn't. Again, we still barely knew anybody, but we're like, we called all the camber guys when we got out there. I called Eric Scarlett, I think was the number I had from a payphone, and
Right.
he's like,
Hoping
just
he
come to
picks
the
up.
chop shop and hang out. So he gave me the address, and I ran McNally my way over there. And I remember getting there, and they were all thrashing on trucks, trying to get them ready for Rezo. So, I was there. I was like, let me help. So I went in there and just jumped in, started working on stuff. Brian wasn't there. I think Brian showed up about an hour later. He was running errands.
Mm-hmm.
And we were putting, I can't remember his name. One of the OG members of Camber, he had an extended cab Nissan that Brian stretched into a long bed. And we were throwing the bed on that truck, and he's like, "Who the heck are you?"
Where'd you come
I'm from? From Texas. I only talked to you on the phone. He goes, "Oh, cool." So yeah, we thrashed on trucks all night. Went to Rezo that weekend. That was a pretty. There's a lot of photos floating around from that year at Rezo with that red Mazda in a lineup out front of the Camber camp with the Alpha McLean Cruiser parked next to it.
Yep.
And
I know exactly what you're
Kane's
talking about.
yellow Toyota.
Yep. And I'll dig up some of those photos.
Yeah, we were all in a row out there hanging out. I mean, just epic times. But I became really close to Brian on that trip. Spent a lot of time just shooting the shit, trying to learn as much as I could because he was doing a lot of tech at the time.
Yeah, it was like free advice, and
Oh yeah, and he's another guy. Him and Sean both. I mean, more than willing to share what they knew.
Yep. Well,
And,
when we had Chris Schmidt on recently, NC brother, he talked about how he was traveling to like Spring Splash and some of these, shows circa 95, 96. So like to hear it from him up in New York, and then obviously like Courtney, rest in peace, was kind of bringing you guys together, and then you were kind of hooked because of just the epicness that you saw when you went to Spring Splash, and then here you are, down in like Escondido, San Diego area, right, where Jendro, the chop shop, was at.
Yeah. And this was like, I remember it was like, I want to say it was the peak, but it was the beginning of the peak.
Oh yeah.
For the chop shop. I mean, that was, I think that was the first shop Jendro moved out of from his house. Because the OG chop shop tech articles are shot in Brian's 2-car garage.
Interesting, yeah.
And
cool.
Courtney was excellent at making it not look like a 2-car garage.
Right. The angles.
I'll tell you more about that in a little bit, but
let me ask you this. So, talking about LOMEGO, we're talking to Rob Rodell, Negative Camber, Texas. When you think about LOMEGO, you've kind of given us some of this backstory that's pretty freaking awesome. When you body dropped it, how soon from that point did you start to get it, like decide that you're going to go full-blown graphics and stuff?
Okay, so the body drop story on that, I started on it like 2 weeks before Heat Wave. I had it almost finished when Brian Jendro and them, it was Brian Jendro, Tom Horn, Mike Peters.
Ah, wow.
I think it was all three of those guys. They came out with Brian's Ombre that year to show at Heat Wave. Because we told him, man, you need to come to Heat Wave. And he's like, I'm like, you can stay at my house. So they all drove out, at my parents' house, of course. I put him up in the spare bedroom. He's hanging out. I think he got there like on a Friday early. Mm-hmm. And he's like, well, what's left on your truck? I was like, I'm not even worried about it. It's almost, a roller, but, I don't need it. It was close. I don't need to have it out there. And he was like, nope, we're taking it. And I think we sent my mom to the store to buy as much Mountain Dew as she could get. And it was a Mountain Dew fueled full 24-hour thrash to push we got my truck put together enough to push it on the trailer and haul it out for Heat Wave that week. And I think there even might have been a shot. It's still primered, but it was body dropped sitting on the ground at Heat Wave. You probably can't see it, but I think Brian and I are asleep behind it in the grass.
Classic,
I don't think we saw anything that day at Heat Wave. We just slept.
Yeah, and that's like circa probably 97, because then a year later it's on the cover the same month as Heat Wave.
Yes, and it was funny because he was like, in fact, this was when I was supposed to start I think it was, I had another job that was scheduled to come in after that or whatever, and Brian's like, you should come out to California for a week or two and hang out with us, and he goes, I'll fly you back. I'm like, and I was, self-employed at the time. I'm like, you know what? I will do that.
Yeah, you had that. You had the flexibility. Yep.
Yeah, so I rode back to Escondido with Brian and Tom and Mike. Brian had bought a Ford shoebox sedan that weekend while he was at the show.
Okay.
A buddy of ours had it for sale, and he wanted it. So Brian bought that and put it on his trailer. And I think Tom Horn didn't have a driver's license at the time, or something was the deal. He needed somebody to drive the Hombre back to California that had a license. So, yeah, I ended up driving that Hombre all the way back to San Diego with Tom Horn as my co-pilot. I remember that trip well because we blew up the water pump in Brian's van in Fredericksburg, Texas. We camped out on the side of the street until Walmart opened so we could buy a toolkit and a new water pump, and I put a water pump on his van on the side of the road.
Damn.
And then we drove the rest of the way till we got to El Centro. We started blowing out trailer tires because it was like 115 degrees. And I think by the time we got to Brian's house, it had the mini spare off of his van on it and a couple of tires we had bought at a used tire store on that trailer.
Yeah, to just get it there.
Yeah, just to get it there. And then I spent the next 2 weeks in mini truck heaven working side by side with Brian in his garage. At the time, he was back at his house, OG Chop Shop. I remember the truck. I can't remember what we worked on. I was just, in awe and, learning from an absolute metal master at the time for 2 weeks. And spent my 2 weeks there. He sent me home, refreshed energy, was ready to, tackle anything after that. And, from that point on, I was pretty much, Brian was one of my good friends after that. And anytime he would get busy, he would phone a friend and send me a plane ticket. And I would, spend my rotation between working in my parents' garage and working out in his shop or garage or wherever he was at the time for the next, I don't know, probably 2 years.
Oh, yeah.
And I was making enough money to, pay my bills, travel to shows, buy tools, and, doing some horse trading. That little Toyota I got from Booger, I had done a bunch of work on my buddy Dave's Nissan. So he, in return, had learned how to paint. We painted that Toyota, and I ended up selling it about 2 weeks after I painted it to a dude in Indiana, I think it was, because he heard I had a body drop truck for sale. And I used the money I made after I paid off the loan to buy the billet wheels for the LOMEGO, the 17-inch billet specialties Odysseys. I ordered from a buddy of mine. I used that cash to pay for it. I had body dropped my friend's Ford Ranger, and he was painting the LOMEGO. So the LOMEGO was at his mom's house in about 1,000 pieces. My buddy Scott had gone to Wyotech for custom paint and body. And he worked at that same body shop that my friend Dave worked at, Custom Car Correctors here in Austin previously. So I knew him pretty good. And I body dropped his truck. He painted the LOMEGO, that get 'em green base color that it got famous for.
Mm-hmm.
I got it back from Scott the week before Spring Splash 97.
Okay.
So Spring Splash 97, and I was waiting on the wheels to show up. Of course, billet wheels, they take, months to come in.
Right.
I had ordered them months in advance just so I'd have them in time. They didn't come in time, so I drugged that truck in all of its bright green glory with no interior. I trailered it out to Splash on the 15-inch, progressive deuces.
Mm-hmm.
And we showed out there. I think I went out a few days early, too, because we thrashed on Dave Chappelle's Toyota. We finished that one up for that show. He had a body drop, regular cab, red Toyota truck that had a 4-lug conversion. It had a rear end out of a Toyota Supra, a straight axle rear end that he had gotten from another camera guy. And Brian had 4-linked it and body dropped it. He was Brian's little shop helper at the time. And I helped Brian tighten that up. And then all of us cruised out to the run on the river. And that was the year it was on the other side of the river. It wasn't in Parker. And I think I met Chris Schmidt that year.
Oh, nice.
Splash. But again, the LOMEGO pops up in the magazine. It was bright green, body dropped on the deuces. I got home from that trip, and of course, the 17s showed up while I was gone.
Exactly. That's the way it works out.
Yeah. So I think at Super Shops was where I bought the Euro TAs for those wheels and had them mounted up. And I took that truck to one local car show, lime green on the 17s. And it was body dropped. And that's where I met Ryan Evans.
Oh, okay, got it. Yep. Who works now at Counting, the TV show is Counting Cars.
Yeah, he's on the Counting Cars show, but at the time he had his own shop, Syndicate Studios, and it was in Round Rock, not far from my house. He had just moved to the area, and, he was trying to make a name for himself. He was painting a lot of motorcycles at the time, but he wanted to paint something that was going to get him some recognition. And I started going by his shop, and hanging out, seeing what he was doing, giving him a hand. We hit it off pretty quick. He was sleeping in his shop at the time. A week at a time, he would go home on the weekends and take a shower and do laundry.
Wow.
And then come down again for the week. So I was like, dude, just come, crash at my parents' house during the week. You can, take showers. You ain't got to stink. And he ended up hanging out over there. I would help him out on his shop when I wasn't working on stuff in mine. He's like, pay for paint. Let me put graphics on your truck. He goes, I want to go crazy.
Really?
He said he had painted one truck complete before then, and he could do better. He kept saying, I can do something awesome. I can do something awesome. And I remember we talked for a few weeks. We discussed what he was going to do. I think, honest to God, I paid him $600 for materials.
Wow! Dude, that's crazy.
That is the deal of the century. Like I said, he just wanted to paint something. And my truck, like I said, I give props to Scott because he got my bad body work whipped into shape. There wasn't a ripple on that truck, and that green paint job was flawless.
Yeah, it's a killer truck. Now, talk to us a little bit about, I'd like to know about the photo shoot itself, right? So you give us a lot of detail on the truck. It appears on July 98 cover. You're cruising. Rest in peace, Courtney. He shoots it. Give us the backdrop of that, because, my assumption is always, it was shot 3-4 months before. Do you recall if it was when it was shot?
Yes, it was actually shot at Rezo. During
okay.
Rezo that year.
So you were out in Cali for that then?
Yeah, because we put the graphics on it. The first time you ever see it with graphics was in Heatwave 97 photos. It was fully graphic with zero interior in it at Heatwave that year.
Got it.
So I was showing it with no interior because I started doing interior in it. My buddy Lurch wrapped the dash in tweed in it. I had the seats done by an upholstery shop, and I hadn't finished the rest of it. I hadn't decided what I was going to do. And I met Ghetto Bob, Vince Incalcatera.
That's a tough one. I can never say that name.
Yeah, he works at Counts Customs too.
That's
with
what I thought.
Ryan now.
Yep.
Ghetto Bob's the interior guy there. I met him at a show in Lake Charles, and again swapped. I body dropped his truck and fixed suspension debauchery under his little S10. And in return, he went nuts on the interior. And when he finished that interior, it was right before Rezo. I'm like, I'm taking it to Rezo. So Rezo was an absolute shit show that year. It rained. Like, if you ever see photos of it from that Rezo 98, it was raining. Like, every picture, the ground's wet, all the cars are wet. I think that's probably the only shot of that there was in the magazine with the top on it. Mm-hmm. And Chartis was at that show because at the time Courtney was working for Hot Bike. He was doing custom motorcycle stuff.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So Chartis is like, man, he goes, I'm shooting it. I want to shoot it. When can we shoot it? I'm like, well, I'll hang out after the show, and you can just shoot it whenever. He goes, I'm going to Brian's anyway. He goes, we'll set up something for the week after. He's like, awesome. So I went to Brian's house. Chartis set up for, again, rest in peace. I hate to say that so many times. Sean Carlson to shoot it on Monday or Tuesday of that week. So I'm on the phone with Sean, setting up, trying to link up to get the shoot. And I ended up blowing a hydraulic cylinder out, getting ready to go to the shoot.
Damn.
So I called Sean. I'm like, dude, I can't make it. I got to rebuild a cylinder. He's like, oh, no big deal. Let me know when it's done, and we'll figure it out. So, I pulled the hydraulic cylinder out, and Brian and I are running all over San Diego trying to find some seals to rebuild the cylinder. Nobody had any in stock, but I found there was a guy that had one 8-inch hydraulic cylinder on the shelf. Mm-hmm. There was a lowrider's hydraulic cylinder. Didn't match anything I had, but it was put together. I'm like, I'll take it.
Right.
So I just threw the cylinder in there, bolted it back together. I called Mike up. I'm like, hey, I got it all fixed. He's like, oh, Sean's tied up the rest of the week. He goes, Courtney said he'll shoot it real quick. Just give him a call. And so I called Courtney. He's like, meet me out. He goes, I'm shooting a bike not far from y'all. He goes, just meet me here, and we'll find a spot. Mm-hmm. So I drove up there to the shop where he was shooting the bike feature, and he was in his little S10. And he goes, there's a spot over by a gun range over here that's got a nice parking lot that'll work for a good backdrop. Mm-hmm. So we drove to this gun range, and Courtney's, he's very particular about how he likes to shoot stuff. So he's like arranging the truck, having me turn it around, moving around.
Some, looking at the wheels and all that. Yeah.
So we shot the whole thing in this, it was a crushed stone driveway basically of this gun range. So the whole time he's shooting it, you're hearing, gun fire in the background. I think he knocked out, the shots that he wanted to do there probably less than an hour. Mm-hmm. We were done. He's like, man, I want to get some rolling shots. So Ghetto Bob was with me at the time, and the captain, I think, was out there at the time. And captain was driving, Kevin Coonsey was driving Courtney's S10 down the freeway with Courtney laying in the back of it. And he shot those rolling shots. I, finished up, shook hands. He took off with his camera rolls, and I didn't hear nothing from it. They give you that. Mike sent me a little
sheet,
the sheet to fill out. That I don't know if you've ever read one of those mini trucking feature sheets from back in the day that were a complicated wormhole of information they wanted from you.
Yeah, and, I remember seeing those because my buddy's truck was shot, and it was a lot of info.
They were like an all-purpose, for any magazine.
Yeah, they were exactly one size supposedly fit all. The thing that I always thought about is the cover is awesome, but it makes sense because in the little table of contents it mentions rolling low action provided by Courtney quote Hot Bike Hollowell. Right, because he was doing that stuff. But to me, like the centerfold where it says LOMEGO with the font and it says "Getting Jiggy with It" Texas style, and that I don't know if it was asphalt or whatever it is, but to me, like that where it was parked, it just made it look cool because you had a little bit of the brush in the back, but then you see like the graphics and stuff, and for whatever reason, like I think like the ground that it was sitting on, man, it did make it look good.
It was Courtney. After that feature shoot, I became really close with Courtney. Talked to him a lot, and when he went back to street trucks after Hot Bike and started shooting that, I probably was around him. I don't know how many times shooting features, and just the eye he had for location and setting stuff up. I mean, he was one of the best. I mean, he could make. I mean. The stuff just it popped on the pages of the magazines.
Oh yeah,
and but yeah, those I had like I said, pre-internet days. I didn't hear nothing out of Mike after he got the photos, and when I got I think he might have left a message on my phone that said, "Yeah, it's going to be out in July." Just keep an eye out for it. They don't send you a copy of it in the mail or anything like that.
Right.
And I remember waiting, by the mailbox, waiting for that Mini Truckin to get there. And when it was on the cover, I was blown away because I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and the rolling shot is just so good. And it kind of was – I always like those because it usually would contrast a little bit with the feature because the feature obviously is not done on the highway. So you had this kind of different photo there, which made for a great plaque or, hanging, in the shop or whatever. And, the research we've done is basically Courtney, he had shot, he was credited with 17 covers. So, some of them were like with the S10, it was him and I think Mike Alexander and then, Clint Walker, but, on one of them and Chartsis on one. But like, I mean, for one, you have one of the 17 covers that Courtney was credited with, and I look at it and say, dude, it's one of my favorite covers because it had the rolling shot. But then the other thing was the LOMEGO. I actually owned one for a while. That was like a daily driver with static drop that rode horribly.
Yeah.
But for those to be like kind of topless, with the top off, like it just made for like a real awesome cover.
Oh man, it was that truck was so much fun to cruise around in. And, after that thing, after it got painted, I still drove it a lot locally.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I mean, you'd find that thing parked in the mall parking lot.
Right, yep.
After it was done. I mean, I wasn't not going to drive it. I loved that thing.
Yeah.
And local cruise nights, everything, I drove it. But if I was going far, I used to always catch flack for Trailer Queen. Yeah. Trailer Queen. And I remember it was a show up by going toward Dallas one year. Some kid was just riled up because I had trailered it up there, and I was like, and it was, I think it was like an hour from the house, and I was like, you know what?
F you.
Whatever. I was like, it was a 2-day show, and I went home that night, unloaded it off the trailer, and the next day I just drove it there.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, I drive this thing constantly.
Yeah, and little did they know that like you had taken it to California when it was like static dropped, and I mean,
oh yeah, I mean
you probably have more miles driving your show truck than 95% of people.
Oh man, that thing had, when I sold it, I think it had like 115,000 miles on it, and I mean I drove
and you had it
out of that truck
since new, like you said earlier. Now let me ask you this real quick. Because I always remember, right, so, it was on the cover, we talked about it was on the July 94, like in that spring, Easter, or the Spring Splash, event coverage and whatnot, and kind of that cover. But then it kind of went dormant for a while. So is the story goes that you talk to us a little bit about it, because did you just own it for a few years after it was done, and then you were like, okay, I'm going to move on, and then that next guy was the one that had it like stashed away all that time before John ended up with it?
Well, it gets a little fuzzy. I owned it. It came out in July 98 on the cover.
Mm-hmm.
I took it to Heat Wave that year, which was like, I think it was 98, Heatwave 98. And Courtney did another one of those cover shots with all the trucks.
Yes.
In a funny story, the Amigo was in that picture too. It's just way in the back.
Yeah, I always thought that it was. I mean, you can't really see it, but I thought that it was.
Yeah, it was on 3 covers technically.
Yeah, which is
same
cool.
truck, same goofy guy in it. But the not long after that, it was 99. I was getting the urge. I wanted to build something else. It was done. By that time, the internet was starting to peak up. And, there used to be a Negri Camber website on, I don't know if you remember GeoCities.
Yes, I do.
One of those build-it-yourself website sites. That website I built in my mom and dad's house.
No way.
Because we didn't have one. And I knew jack crap about computers. And I used to get, I started that Camber website just as kind of like a place to put pictures of my buddy's trucks up there on the internet because it was new. And it's funniest stuff ever, as I used to get envelopes from all the guys in the club, from all the chapters with, pictures in them. And I would scan all those pictures and upload them to GeoCities.
That's funny. Wow. So because I remember even because back in those days I'd go on like Latest Craze and Forever Low and all those different websites, the early versions, right? When I don't think it was Java. I forget what it was in that day, like what people were using, right? But they'd code these sites and they were very, like by today's standards, like minimalistic.
Oh,
but
they were.
It still took, obviously probably hours to upload certain stuff and whatnot. But I remember going on the site. Yeah, man.
Yeah, the OG, and you know what? I think somebody said GeoCities is still out there somewhere. That website is probably still floating around on there.
That's funny, yeah. Because sometimes
I have no idea how to access it, but it might still be there. But yeah, I used to scan all those pictures, and I think I put the Amigo up on the site as being for sale maybe at one point. And that I took it to Indie Truck Bash.
Mm-hmm. Oh, you did? I didn't know that.
I took it to ITB one year, and I think in fact there's a couple of shots of it up there. There's a blue tracker that had crazy graphics.
Yes, I remember that.
There's pictures of that, my truck and his truck, like nose to nose, that popped up on the internet once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the last truck show I took it to.
And then you got a call or something.
Yeah, I sold it to a guy in the club. A guy named Carmel in New Jersey. He had to have it. And he's like, I want it.
Yeah, I always remember I went to New Jersey.
Yeah, I was like, all right. He goes, and I forget what we sold it for. At the time, it was, I think, more money than I paid for it new. But still, it was a lot for a mini truck in that time. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take that. I'll take it and run. Carmel, sent me a check. I think I told him to send me a check for like $500,
like a deposit.
So I wasn't making, and I rented a U-Haul car trailer, put it behind my pop's full-size Chevy, and me and Ghetto Bob drove it up to Jersey one way and to Carmel's house, and he looked at it and said, "Yep, I want it." I was like, all right, cash deal. And he had a paper bag full of cash that he gave me. And I sold him the truck. That was the last time I saw it in person. It was sitting out front of his house. I dropped off that U-Haul trailer. Me and Ghetto Bob went to New York City and hung out for a couple of days, blowing money on dumb stuff.
Yeah.
And then ended up driving home with an empty trailer, and that was like I said, the last time I saw that truck in person.
Yeah. So was the mindset like when you decided to sell it, right? Because obviously, we talked about it at the beginning with bikes and stuff. Like, okay, the stuff we had, but you had this unique opportunity where you had it from new. Then you had it in Cali, you had it in Texas. You hit ITB. You get the cover. You have this amazing paint job for a great deal and stuff. And then did it just wear off that you're just like, okay, boom, I had the success. Now I could build something else? Is that what drove it?
It was funny because I was talking to Ryan at the time. At the time he was still staying with me at my parents' house.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I want to build something else. I want to, I want to I was like that, or I'm going to redo it.
Mm-hmm.
And we discussed maybe, changing the base color. I don't know if you remember the green van that Cal Concepts painted that then got based orange and then got based yellow.
Yep.
Or then got based yellow, then orange.
Mm-hmm. I think
we
that's what it was.
could change the base color. I could change up the wheels. I talked about putting airbags on it and then just switching it all up. And he's like, nah, let's just build something else. Just build something else.
Yep.
So, I sold it. I had a little bit of regret because, I didn't have anything custom.
Yeah, that was kind of your baby,
Yeah, and I talked to Courtney. I was like, man, I'm going to build something else now. He goes, I don't know what to build. And he's like, build a Nissan Frontier. Because they had been out for a little while, but there was none at car shows.
Right. And
Courtney, I don't know if you remember that time at Street Trucks was starting up. He had he knew somebody over at Nissan.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at the time, I didn't know. He knew somebody way up the chain at Nissan because he's like, build a Frontier, I'll get you a deal on it. And so he ends up, talking to his buddy over at the Nissan corporate headquarters there in LA. And he calls me up. Here's the guy's number. You call him and discuss what you're going to do. So I call, here I am at the time, mid-20s kid, still building cars out of my parents' garage. I had shot a tech article or two for Courtney out of the garage.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, that goes to, again, what I said about Brian's shop. He can make a garage look like a big shop.
Oh, yeah.
He had a way of doing that. And in fact, he helped me shoot a 4-link feature on my buddy Dave's Nissan that ended up being the one that turned the guy that painted my Toyota as it comes full circle.
Oh, yeah.
And then getting featured in Mini Truckin, or he might have got featured in Street Trucks. But he goes, get a Nissan, call this guy. So I called this guy. He goes, what do you want to do to it? It's like, I'm going to do like a full build on it. I want to do, body mods, paint it. I'm going to body drop it, airbag it, put a set of wheels on it.
Yeah, full custom truck.
This, that, and the other thing. He's like, sounds awesome. He goes, go to the dealership, pick out a truck. He goes, I'll get you the truck at a deal. And I'm thinking like, what kind of deal is he going to give me?
Right. Like that fell off a truck deal? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So, I went into the local Round Rock Nissan dealership, and I'm walking down the line of Frontiers. Frontiers came out in 98.
Mm-hmm.
This was early 99, and they still only had 98 Frontiers on the lot.
Damn.
They had a dark green one, a tan one, and the baby poo green. And I decided the baby poo green was least offensive of the three.
Nice.
And I was like, some random salesman, walks out. Hey, you looking at these new trucks? I'm like, yeah, I think I'll take this one. He's like, oh, really? You don't want to test drive it or nothing? I'm like, nah, I don't need to test drive it. I was like, I think I'm going to take this one. He's like, all right, well, let's go in here and do a little paperwork and see if we can get you, set up. I'm like, all right, but I got somebody you got to call when we get inside. So we go inside. I'm like, this guy here is like I think he was the VP of marketing for Nissan USA or whatever it was.
Uh-huh.
I was like, I had his business card that he had, or his phone number written down on a piece of paper, I think even. I was like, call this guy. He's going to get you the price for the truck. And they're like, what do you mean the price for the truck? So the guy calls the manager over here, and he wants to argue with me. He's like, call the guy. I'm just telling you, call the guy.
Right.
Again, still don't have a cell phone at this time. Call the guy. So, he landline calls this guy up, and is like, yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Okay. And, the conversation was maybe 2 minutes long. He hangs up the phone. He goes, well, you're getting this truck cheaper than we even pay for them. So I signed some paperwork, drove off the lot in the baby puke green Nissan, and
the rest
took it
is
home.
history.
Yeah, it's history because I think I drove it around a couple of weeks just to make sure it didn't have any issues. And, back at the time, everybody talked about paper tagging the mini trucks. And I didn't quite make it paper tag, but I was busy, working on customer jobs. And that would have been, it was at Spring Splash that year was they shot Road Fools for the first issue of Street Trucks.
Yes.
I pulled the truck in the garage 2 weeks before I left for that show and blew it apart. Ghetto Bob helped me the whole time. He was staying with me.
Oh, really?
At the time, he was crashing at the parents' house. He didn't have anything to do either. And him and I just busted butt on it. I cut the floor out, body dropped it, I think 2 3/4 inches. I did 2 inches on the floor, and I lowered all the mounts 3/4 of an inch. And airbagged it, 4-linked it, Pete and Jake's 4-link Firestone bags. Firestone compressors were what everybody used back then. I put it all back together. Courtney, again, the best guy in the world, got me a comp set of Anki wheels. The lady just called me and said, "What wheels you want?" So I picked out a set. I had the hubs out getting re-drilled while I was, as soon as I blew it apart, stuck it all back together, bolted the wheels on it. I even lowered the factory back bumper and stuck it on it, and dropped it off the stands, aired it up, took a test drive to the alignment shop, got it aligned, drove it home, and threw my tent in the back of it and drove it.
Wow. Yeah.
Left for Spring Splash. I mean, I had literally about 15 miles on it around the neighborhood and to the alignment shop. And
how'd it do on the trip?
Absolutely perfect.
That's what I thought you were going to say.
I refused. I did not air it out the entire drive to Arizona.
Right, just in case you had, you were just like, hey, it's running good.
Oh, God. I just want to drive it. I just want to make it to the show. We got to La Paz County Park, cruised into the park. Courtney was there. He saw it roll in, and his eyes were like as big as saucers. He couldn't believe it.
He was like, dude, man, my homie, he came through.
Yeah, he goes, "You got it done." I'm like, "Yep." He goes, "I want to drive it." And he fucking stole my keys, hopped in it, and he drove around the show in it for about probably a half hour or so. Come to find out, he hopped in it, took it up the road into town and back.
That's awesome. Yeah, he had a smile on his face ear to ear. Yeah, and I want to point out, too, so you had in this, Road Fools first issue of Street Trucks, I mean, how epic is that? You had Todd Brian Kenny from Florida. So obviously Todd is Tim's brother, who's, a good friend of ours. Then you had Ghetto Bob. You had Lurch. Of course, you, Rob Rodell. Of course, you is, and then Captain. And then Brett Oakes, our leader in Severed. And then you had Gene, the dancing machine, Palma. Yeah, Gene and Brett disappeared mid-trip back. I don't know where. Nobody knows where they went. But yeah, funny. It was funny because Courtney shot all that footage after the show. Yeah, I was wondering about that because you did, in here you've got it aired out. Of course, you guys are at that famous. I always forget the name of it, where the dinosaurs are at, and then where the dinosaurs are at out there in the middle of the desert. I think that's Palm Valley or something, Palm Desert or something they call it out there. Yep. Yeah. And then the motorhome, we got a photo from Todd that we'll share of Courtney driving it. I think they were in the Xterra, which maybe was a rental, and then you also had the golf cart. That whoever's golf cart that thing was laid out in front of the motorhome, which was epic. Yes. Yeah, that was funny because that at a run not long before that, Chris Schmidt was in a car. And it rolled out in the middle of the desert, and I'll never forget it. He was riding back to California with Courtney in that motorhome, and we were cutting across the desert in that motorhome, and Courtney was driving that thing like he stole it. And, yeah, Jeff Davey just talked about how he drives motorhomes. Yeah, he had that car hauler trailer behind the motorhome, and there's some dips out there going across the desert going toward L.A.,
the motorhome went in that dip and came out of it, and the front end came up in the air off the ground. And Courtney said Chris Schmidt was in the passenger seat, stomping his feet, screaming, having flashbacks, and just walked to the back of the motorhome after that and didn't want to ride up front.
Oh, yeah. That's what Jeff was saying, just same kind of story. So whatever, like, what came about, because I'm trying to remember, I'm going from memory, the Nissan, it did get featured, didn't it?
It never got featured.
Okay.
We drove out there to L.A. I stayed at Courtney's house for a day or two, hung out with him. All of us, crashed on Big Tan, I think was the name of his uncomfortable-ass loaner couch in his living room. So, yeah, we flop-housed at Courtney's in L.A. for a few days. Then I drove it straight down to Jendro's shop. And Jendro, I had worked out a deal with old Steve Nielsen out at Alter Images.
Yep.
He sent me a Cali combo right out to Jendro's shop. And I got some flush mount taillights from High Tech. And Brian and I sat in his shop for a few days, shaved the whole back end of the bed, taillights, did the roll pan combo, shot it for a tech article for Street Trucks.
Maybe that's what I recall, because I remember seeing more of it in the magazine. And then what happened from there?
I decided it was time for me to move out of my parents' garage under the the pushing of my dad. You got too many trucks in the driveway.
Right.
I want my garage back.
Yep.
So I decided to rent a shop. And I ended up moving the shop into Houston area, into Dickinson, Texas. I found a little, 1,200 square foot, 2-bay metal building for rent. I think I paid $600 a month for it at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And so I moved all my stuff, the Nissan, all that down to Houston. Just started running my shop. Got super busy super fast. Because by that time, that 4-link tech article had run in the magazine in Street Trucks.
So you were getting calls and stuff.
My phone was ringing off the hook. I finally got a cell phone by this time.
Nice. Yeah. There you go.
I had a shop number, and my phone was ringing off the hook, and business was good. I was building, I was constantly busy, and the Nissan kind of got backburnered. It sat in the driveway over there. I shaved the door handles on it, I think. A few other odds and ends. We started working on the interior in it. I decided to move into a bigger shop. Outgrew the one I was in, so I moved across town.
And this is under the name Underground Customs.
Underground Customs still. I rented space from a hot rod guy. He rented this massive, like 5,000 square foot shop, and basically said, "Hey, man, I'll pay me what you're paying now, and I'll let you use a big chunk of the shop. Just give me a hand here and there." I'm like, "Oh, it sounds like a good deal to me." And I can learn some more stuff. So, I went up there. Again, my Nissan's still not getting worked on, but a whole new, worked in this shop, ended up being a really bad idea. I was paying my rent every month, but it turns out the other guy just wasn't. I moved out of that shop into another shop, Nissan in tow still, blown apart, getting worked on. And I just kind of was trying to get settled into a new business plan thing. And right around that time, 9/11 happened.
Mm-hmm.
Business kind of dried up real quick, real fast. I had just found another location and was getting it set up, and I was just my building got broke into, a bunch of my tools got stolen. I shut the shop down. I ended up selling the truck to a buddy of mine, said he was going to finish it, and I never really saw it again after that.
Yeah, it was just one of those, and we've all heard of those and stuff. But what was cool about it is that you did get, obviously you had this amazing truck. You're part of that the Road Fools. You had the tech article and stuff, and I always remember that truck, how awesome it was, and it was kind of like you said, the paper tag thing, kind of referring to like when Jendro had the Ombre. It was like brand new.
Paper. Yeah, Brian bought that sucker and brand new and did it.
Yeah, so for the listeners, it's like, having, back in the day, you'd have which I guess in some states you still have a paper temporary tag, and it would be like boom, body dropped. It was kind of like, now the guys are like, oh, I have a brand new truck. We've seen it with Schulman, and then they have the window sticker on it, and it's just like, oh, that's kind of like this. Damn, check this out. So in that day, like, there weren't as many brand new trucks laid out. Like the Ombre might be the one that comes to mind when it was white.
Yeah,
when it was
that was probably the first one I ever saw too. I remember that year Brian brought that out to Splash, and nobody had even seen an Ombre, let alone was there a custom one. And he blew minds that weekend. It was so simple. To this day, I searched the Facebook Marketplace for a white Ombre that's a good deal.
Yeah, just to kind of recreate
the original look of it.
Yep.
For just a cruiser.
Oh, dude, yeah. And it's cool that the truck, I forget the person's name that actually owns it now, but, it came back out earlier this year. And
oh, yeah, Joey owns it. That's Tractor. That was another one of Brian's helpers from the Chop Shop days.
Okay. Yeah, because someone had thrown around his name, and I wasn't 100% sure. And, that it was on the Truckin' cover, and I think it was... he lived in that area, so I'm going memory. I think it was Pete Finland that maybe painted it.
Yeah, Finland painted... pretty much all of Brian's trucks.
Right, yeah, including Sal Marchese's, who we did the shirt of, the Total Chaos, one of my favorite trucks.
Pete used to have a shop like right next door to Brian's Chop Shop.
Yeah, because I think he even painted the yellow Mitsu too that was on the cover. Like all of those.
The yellow Mitsubishi.
Yeah.
He painted all of Brian's
stuff. Yeah.
He painted that the Toxic Toy, the Ombre. Sal's truck.
Yeah, just all of those big iconic builds. And
all those Chop Shop builds from that time. Yeah, Pete ended up doing all of them.
Yeah, and Hot Dog Designs.
That was right up until Ryan Evans moved out to San Diego. He wanted to move to California, and he rented a shop next to Brian. And and then Ryan started painting a bunch of stuff for Brian too.
Yeah, and Hot Dog Designs, Pete Finland. Up until I think the other day, I saw that the guy's still winning awards for the stuff that he does.
Oh, yeah.
It is truly mind-blowing. It's super talented guy. I'd love to have him on, just to talk about some of the mini truck stuff. But I always love, dude, we love we know he loves hot dogs, right? Obviously the name Hot Dog Customs, but it's so awesome. Every Wednesday that I can remember, most Wednesdays, it's Wiener Wednesday. He's got his hot dogs, dude. Nice. The guy is just he's hardcore, man. But,
Pete was a character. I met him a handful of times through Brian, and another one of those guys. You just so much talent, and you just don't. I was a kid back then when I met him, and it's like you don't even think about it.
Yeah, so. And Craig Frazier. If anybody has an opportunity, Craig Frazier does a podcast. And, we've had Craig on before. Now, Craig does his, which I think is mostly on, I know I found it on YouTube and Facebook, and I think he's going to expand out if he hasn't already, but I know it's on YouTube. You can find it. But he had Pete on, and that was a good one. But, dude, let me ask you this. So, we talked a lot about trucks. Dude, so much detail. It's so funny how you're like, I don't know how good my memory is. Like, man, you remember a lot of stuff, and I got to thank John Moore for sending me the issue with LOMEGO on it, because what happened is my OG issue, I know where it's at. My friend John, one of my best friends, his parents keep everything. Like, dude, they have video game systems still in the box. Like, oh, we'll put it back. Like, they're not pack rats, but they're kind of more pack ratish than I am, right? So they have, But I remember in the late 90s, I left my issue there, and somehow it got stored away in that house. So all these years later, John had sent me another copy, and it's a mint copy, one of my favorite issues. It still has the little cards that aren't ripped out, and it's freaking perfect. So we talked a lot about that. Obviously, dude, some of these epic road trips. Dude, the Frontier was killer. I'll go back and share some of the road fools and stuff. But I wanted to ask you real quick about, unless you had anything else you wanted to share on that stuff, I wanted to ask you about Monsters Garage, because I know that's a part of what you do now.
Yeah, that was a whole out of nowhere thing. I had been working at an off-road shop in Houston on and off for the last, I think I started back working there. I'd worked in car audio for a few years after I shut my shop down. I was a manager of a chain store here locally called Tweeter. I managed the car audio department there for about 3 years. And I took a job at an off-road shop that was wanting to get back into car audio. So they hired me to set up their car audio deal. Well, I got over there, and the owner of it, it was B&C Off-Road in Houston, Texas. Actually, they're in Baytown now. They're still in business to this day, but the owner found out I could build shit, and he never opened the car audio department back up, needless to say. I started building some really big trucks for him. I still talked to Courtney, and Courtney got in touch. Was talking about some of the stuff we were doing. And he's like, "Oh, if you build something cool, let me know, man. We shoot it for the magazine." And at the time, I was doing. It had to been like a 2003 or 4 is when Ford came out with those Harley Edition F-250s.
Yes,
that were orange and black.
Mm-hmm.
I called them up. I was like, "I got a brand new one of these in here. I'm putting it on 49s, which were the biggest tire you could get at the time." He's like, "Dude, shoot pictures of it." So I, from my Mini Truckin heydays, I shot, a bunch of photos while we were building the custom suspension on it. Sent them to Courtney, and he came to Heatwave that year, and we had that truck out there, and he ended up shooting that truck for the cover of Street Trucks. In 2004 or 5.
Mm-hmm.
There's an issue with a giant orange and black
I remember that one
on there. And I built that truck, and he ran a little blurb at the end of it with all my tech pictures on how we did it. And I kind of reignited my friendship with Courtney through that whole thing. And just built trucks for off-road shop for 6-7 years. Did a few body drops here and there. I built a Mitsubishi, a blue one that was featured in Mini Truckin during that era that was body dropped. Ricky Rowe, who has the green Tacoma that got a bunch of love at LST last year, that's body dropped on the Boyds. I built that truck while we worked at B&C.
Mm-hmm.
Guy in the club, Wheelchair Mike, I redid his old Chevy through there, but I did all these, I was still building trucks all this time through the off-road shop that were here and there. And then I was, again, working in the off-road shop one day, and I was on Facebook at lunch, and Alex Anderson, who I hadn't talked to in years,
mm-hmm.
Put up a post that said, "We need help, like right now. Know anybody that needs a job?" And I was kind of half-ass kidding, because I'd been trying to get back to Austin for a long time, because I've lived in Houston for almost 20 years. I sent him a message and said, "Man, if the money's good enough, I might be willing to." And 3 minutes later, I got my phone's ringing. It was, Alex and Ben.
Good dude.
On the set of Monster Garage. They're like, "Dude, we need somebody right now. You'd be perfect.
Yeah.
We need somebody to run the garage." And I'm like, "Okay." They're like, "How much money do you need?" And I'm like, I shot him a number. He's all right. We'll talk. When can you start? I'm like, "Well, I'm working right now. I need to give him notice." He's like, "Well, we need you here Monday." And this was a Friday. So I went home Friday and stewed on it for a little bit. And I got up Saturday morning and was extra nice to my wife. Amanda, I love you. I buttered her up, and I said, "Hey, I got a job offer on a TV show, but it's in Austin." And she's like, "Well, how much are they going to pay you?" I'm like, "They're going to pay me what I needed to make." And
Yeah.
So she's like, I think you got to do it. You're not going to get another chance to do something like this. So I called him back and said, I can do it. And I told my boss, I'm like, hey, I got this job opportunity. And he's like, no harm, no foul, man. He goes, if I had the chance, I'd do it too.
That's sick. Yeah, and the listeners can go out and follow Official Monster Garage, just how it sounds, on Instagram.
Yep.
Many of them have already found, we got a chance to talk to a Body Drop a little bit before, because obviously, as I think you're in the Monster Garage right now, if I understand correctly, but Body Drop obviously has that great relationship with Jesse. So he had talked about the stuff when they were back filming, but of course, as you know, there's the lead time up until it airs. But I think the majority of folks have found it through the
Discovery Plus app.
Discovery Plus app. Thank you very much.
Yeah, they released it on there, I guess, a couple months back. We had finished shooting in, I think we shot the last reveal. God, I think it was in September or October. And then it came out not long after that.
Yeah, and it's Discovery Plus app. You can get like 7 days free, I know, and then it's like plan starting.
You can binge the whole thing.
Yeah, and it's planned starting at
some
like
cool stuff
$5.
this year.
Exactly.
We even made Jesse build a mini truck, even though he calls it a sports pickup.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's funny. And a lot of times too, I tell people, like with the plan that we have with Verizon, it included a year free of Discovery Plus. So like I often tell people that, with different cell phone providers, they're all want your business. You can go out oftentimes and they're going to give you all these different freebies. So I was watching Discovery Plus last night with my wife. She's like, you watch all these crazy shows. And I said, well, how long do we have this for? And she goes, we have it for a year, but it's like, $6 a month. And of course, we're the ones that forget. And we have like $26 a month, you know what I mean? But it's one that I honestly couldn't live without, Discovery Plus.
You know what? There's a lot of stuff on there. I mean, not just car shows, but all kind. I'm definitely a random documentary guy.
Like true crime stuff.
They got a lot of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Exactly.
But,
that's what I watched some and I've enjoyed them. And to me, like I've told people when we had Jeff Davey on last week, we talk about the success of like mini truckers, like, the Finnegans, Jeff Davey dabbled with the Amazon stuff. He's doing the YouTube. Obviously you're patched in over at Monster Garage, Alex Who, Body Drop. It's cool to me. And I tip my cap to guys like you because, you've been able to, like you said, it didn't happen overnight for you, but you got the call, the opportunity came up, you check with the fam and you're like, boom, I can do it. So, but to me, it's awesome because when you talked about early days working in your dad's garage, I mean, who would have ever thought you'd be working on a TV show, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
with all due respect, that's awesome,
Yeah. All of us, you grow up watching, the Motorcycle Mania with Jesse James and all the Monster Garages. And, I found myself getting, I work at West Coast Choppers now still.
Right. Yeah.
During when we're not shooting, so
that's cool.
I still got to hang around with that old grumpy mini trucking hating Jesse James every day.
Yeah, he sure does know how to work the crowd, though. You know what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah,
that's good.
Yeah, he's in all honesty, he's a great guy. Man, he has a lot of talent, and the dude just knows his stuff. So
yep,
it's crazy seeing that I kind of work. For him now, mainly on all of his personal pet projects that he has.
Oh yeah,
which is a lot. The guy has got a million things going on. So
yeah, he's hardcore blue collar guy, and obviously
definitely.
I always enjoyed the early days when they had the little series that they ran. Kind of, I always want to say in the late '90s, but it was the early 2000s, and he was out in Cali and stuff now, but. For the listeners that don't know, Jesse James has been for a while in Texas. I think he had the Austin Speed Shop for a while, and they did some stuff surrounding that. I don't know, but to me, it was cool that when we had Alex Who on, he talked about the reboot of Monster Garage, and I thought it was cool. It's done really well, and then obviously, real quickly before we wrap up here, you do some of the off-camera stuff. Is that what it's considered? Primarily?
Yeah, I mean, I'm the garage guy basically is what my job title is. Parts running. I am the one that knows how to operate all the equipment in the shop. So, some of these builders come in and you need a little guidance. CNC plasma cutting is not something a lot of these builders have done in their life. So I kind of give them pointers, show them how to run that stuff. Keep track of all the tools, we have a massive set of Snap-on tools, best in the business. But some of these guys, a little rough on stuff, tear stuff up. I make sure all the tools are fixed and in working order for each episode. A lot of stuff. Weird job. Didn't ever expected to do it.
Oh yeah.
But I do come from a long line of mini truckers that have done this job.
Yeah, which is awesome. And it's great that there are opportunities there. And like Alex said, when we had him on at the beginning of this year, one of our most downloaded episodes ever, great guy, as you know, he'll always try to put a guy in a place or a lady if he can, right? Like he said, if I can get on somewhere and I've got things going that are manifesting, I can go, let's bring in some guys that we can trust that are hardworking dudes, and that's someone like you. But, Rob, dude, it's been a trip down memory lane for me, and it's funny because you and I haven't necessarily been friends, call me, hit me up. But it's like I kind of feel like I know you because I've seen you in the magazines, I've followed your page. Why don't you give out your Instagram in case anyone wants to go follow you?
Oh yeah, it's a extremely exciting Instagram. I do share a lot of my stuff that I work on.
Yep.
It's at LOMEGO 2. The number 2,
and it's LOMEGO.
Yeah, not LOMEGO.
And it's funny because it ties into the license plate that was on LOMEGO back in the day.
On the original one. And little known fact, I'm building LOMEGO 2.0, or the son of LOMEGO, or just another stupid amigo, as we speak. So I'm about. It should be a roller here pretty quick. I might take it to maybe a show or two near the end of the season this year if I can get it where I can drive it a little bit better. But it's coming along. I share a lot of pictures building on that. Some stuff from the West Coast Choppers Outlaw Garage Shop. A lot of content, random stuff.
Yep.
Yeah, nothing
it's awesome.
Political at all.
Exactly. I'm the same way. I'm like, I could care less. I'm like, whatever. My boss said something the other day, and I was like, I don't care. I was like, I just do. Like, I'll read stuff here and there. I'll sometimes retweet something, whatever. But I'm like, doesn't matter to me, man. Yeah, I'm just middle of the road.
Yeah. But it's funny too because I share a lot of pics. I have a 17-year-old son and a 7-year-old son. I'll say hi to Jackson and Grayson right now, real quick.
Yeah.
But Jackson has 95 Isuzu Pup.
Nice.
That we're building also, and I do some updates on that on my Instagram too. And we bagged the back of it not long ago. I got some parts in from some good guys from back in the day. I got me a Grant Customs Cali combo, similar to what I put on the back of the Frontier. I'm going to put on his truck. We just got a rag top in from Legacy. I got to bag the front of it still because I'm lazy, as he puts it. But I got to fit it in between everything else. But yeah, we're going to have his truck rolling around next year at shows too. So it'll be a father and son
family
combo.
Affair. Yeah, I love hearing it.
The next generation of negative camera coming at you.
Dude, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, 20 years ago, I got to get some of my photos out because I haven't shared but maybe 5% of them, but 20 years ago, I went to the only heat wave I went to, which was in Round Rock. It was
that was the year I skipped.
Yeah, and that was the year everyone was like, "Oh, it sucked that year," and I was like, "Well, dude, I can tell you, it was hot as hell." Okay, I thought it was.
It's hot every year.
Yeah, so that's a given. But it was at the Dell Diamond Center. It was like, "Oh, it sucked," But I got the ride with I got the ride in the famous 88 to 98 that Bill had. So Rich Rawl goes, "Yo, jump in the dually." So that was cool seeing him boss hog his way in there. And, I have a lot of good memories. I saw, Radar's truck, just so many, dude. I took, a couple hundred photos, and it was fun. But, being able to travel and me go to ITB a few years and go to Rezo for the Sever 10th and, kind of dabble around, obviously Showfest many years and whatnot, Lake Charles one year. But all of that stuff, like I have memories that hopefully until hopefully, God forbid, I never get dementia. But until I get dementia, that I'll have with me forever.
Yeah. I mean, I can't. I mean, the crazy ride I've been on. I mean, I've been to shows. I mean, like you said, Texas Heat Wave, Rezo, Spring Splash, Endless Summer, Booger Bash. I went to that a few times. Indie Truck Bash. I mean,
yeah, and those relationships that you build, and the friends, like you said, even going to Cali in the beginning. I mean, I made a lot of friends, dude. Like, I mean, I pulled up at shows going like, I don't know who this is. Like, yo, hey, we're going to eat. Jump in the back of the bed. Dude, next thing you know, I'm having dinner. Oh, man, what's up? So, Pebble Pusher guys, treated me with respect when I went up their way. And, there's just always those relationships. And it's like, hey, just getting out there, going to shows. And I'm thankful that I did. This is the 25th year that I've been going to shows. And, man, I wouldn't replace some of the memories that I have for anything. And that includes money.
Definitely. I mean, it's funny because, I got out of the truck scene for a long time raising kids. And, my older son raced BMX for a lot of years, and I, raced the BMX finals in Tulsa, Oklahoma every year at Thanksgiving. And lo and behold, I'm out there one year. I run into Buddy Steamroller, Bob Wilson, OG Camber member from San Diego. He's got a kid out there racing finals. I ran into Chris Schmidt at Tulsa one year. He's got a son that still races BMX, and he's still running them to this day. He has a team. What up to Hostile BMX up there on the East Coast?
Yes.
We rode for Hostile down here for many years. But, I mean, the people you meet, that's what it's all about.
It is, man.
Nothing else matters. I mean, I've lifelong friends that, met them spending a weekend camping on the river, standing around,
bullshit,
shooting the crap with people around fires drinking jungle juice, and just I feel sad for this generation because there will never be anything like that again.
Oh yeah.
I mean they'll have truck shows, and I wish they could recreate that era, because I mean, especially the California runs. I mean, you've been to a few of them. But it was such a mismatch of people, and, probably 70% of the people at the show weren't even there to show their vehicles. They were just there to party on the river for the weekend.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, just get away. It was kind of like the mini Woodstocks of,
I mean, you talk about, maybe 8 hours on a Saturday. They had the cars parked out there for everybody to look at. The rest of the time you were dragging around the circle at the park. Looking at people, all the things that went along with it. It was just it's a point in time that was, I think, probably the best to be involved in this
the scene of ours, exactly,
or the scene we love.
Yep.
Yeah, it can't be. I hate that my son will never experience that, even though there's some stuff I wouldn't want him to do, but
right,
it is what it is. I mean, I lived. He would probably live too. He's a 90s kid all the way to the core. He listens to all the same music we listen to.
That's awesome.
He drives around Santa Fe, Texas, dragging his little mini truck, just like we used to back in the 90s. So,
and hopefully, if it's a good day, he won't even have to use his AK. You know what I mean? Tell him to put some cube on.
Definitely hope he doesn't have to use his AK.
Exactly. I got to say, it was a good day. Well, dude, listen, man. 2.5 hours of awesomeness. Thanks for all the details, dude. Like, so much epicness. Check out Rob Rodell on Instagram, as we mentioned. Dude, we're going to be bringing some photos. Whatever you got, send them our way. We've got some we'll be sharing.
Yeah, I think I might have a couple of the several stages of LOMEGO that I can probably share.
Yeah, that would be cool. And, dude, we so appreciate your time, and we're going to continue to check out Monster Garage as long as you guys keep doing that. And
hey, yeah, and I'll give you a little bit of inside information. It's just a rumor that I've heard, but you may actually be able to watch that on the regular Discovery Channel in the next month or so.
Yep, they kind of did that with Josh Gates when they did the Back to the Future, searching for the DeLorean type deal. They kind of roll it out first, kind of premium type thing, and then it'll trickle out. Of course, you got commercials and stuff. But still, fantastic.
But on Discovery Plus, you get to hear all the swear words.
Yeah, exactly. You could do the ad free too and all that stuff. But Rob, dude, to you and all the NC guys, like we said last week, rest in peace, Courtney Hallowell. Thank you so much for your time, my brother.
Oh, no problem. Anytime. Rest in peace, Courtney. He was one of the best. I mean, we've lost too many guys in the club. I hate to say it. One's too many, but, Courtney, Vaughn, Rob Carnegie a few years ago. We just lost Kane Morris. I don't know if you knew that.
I did hear about that.
Rest in peace to that guy. I mean, he was a trip if you knew him back in the day. But he was a dude that had your back anytime. So, but yeah, definitely enjoyed talking to you going down memory lane.
Yeah, brother. Well, I'll keep in touch with you.
Late.